no interaction, have the largest volume of snoring participants ever in the history of Zoom.
But like yesterday. No, just kidding.
So, when you guys saw it, I'm going to multitask just for a second. I was stacked this morning. We're going to get going and hopefully have a ton of fun and bring you guys some value. When you guys thought of today's class, and I'd like to hear from 4 or 5 people, and Mike Hickey, who's my partner in crime at KW Vermont, and our Rockstar PC coach, if you could also help monitor the chat. I'd love to hear from 4 or 5 people. What do you hope to get out of today? What will make today, or what can we cover to make today be a great thing that you attended? And feel free to speak up or use the chat, whatever you prefer.
I want to leave psyched.
Want to be psyched.
I want to be psyched and informed, you bet.
Excellent. Now, let me just bring one screen down, psyched and informed. Now, when you say psyched and informed, does that mean to bare your teeth at the dragons that haunt you? Get out there and do some lead gen? What comes to mind when you say that?
Well, I've got my first appointment this afternoon. So I'm focused, I'm prepared, and I want to even be, and I want to be successful.
Excellent. All right, let's hear from 3 or so more. What else comes to mind that we can cover to make sure we're bringing you value today?
Can you go over that script where you hypnotize them and get them to list with me? You have that one, right?
I can try that. So hypnosis. All right.
Someone in the chat wrote having that aha moment's what they're looking for today. They want that aha moment.
Excellent. All right, so guys, I like to joke around and have fun at what I do. At the same time, I can't stress enough. My goal is to bring you value today. So to do that, please be candid. On a scale of 1 to 10, please bring Mike or I 11, 12, or 13. I don't care if I wince when you say something. So if you catch BS on something, please call it out. If you think something's ridiculous, talk to us so that we can work through the objections just like you work through the objections each and every day. Now, the one thing I'm waiting for is I'm either going to get an email or a text from corporate or KW New England as far as breakout sessions and stuff like that. They had some real plays in here, including for an hour, possibly even up to an hour and a half. I'm going to suggest, unless they tell me they really want me to do it, that we do some of that, but we actually do some script practice together. And we possibly even do one of my favorite things to do with script practice, which is jump ball, meaning we have objections, we throw it out. Now, I will be candid with you. This is the first time that I've ever taught this module, so I appreciate your patience while I share my screen and we get up and get going. The other thing I hope to do today, which I didn't see a ton in the materials, was talk about some tactics behind the scripts. So when you guys hear scripts, and again, please be candid, what do you guys think? You get excited? Your eyes roll back in your head? Do you think of timeshare salespeople? What do you think when you hear scripts? And Janet, thanks for, sorry you lost your voice, so please do the chat. We'd love to participate with you.
Hey, Brian, I just want to let you know I'm your MCTT for the day. So if you need something, me to grab any extra scripts for you, just let me know and I'll make sure it gets in the chat.
Excellent. So you may have to, why don't you grab a bunch of scripts, because I'll be candid, I don't have a bunch ready to rock and roll. I didn't see them in the material. I'll pull it up. But if you can help.
I threw the script book in there. I already put it in chat, but I'll put it in again for you. No problem.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Mike, if you could be prepared to help me share that. All right. So let me do my share the screen. Hang on just a second.
So Brian, there's a ton of stuff coming in the chat, and things like when they're talking about scripts, they're looking at, whoops, when you're shared the screen, my chat just went away, but forced car salesman. There was a couple others.
Mike, can you see the chat now?
No, not once you start sharing.
All right.
Hold on, I can probably get it back. I got it back though.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir. So
think of just reading off a sheet, not being authentic, not crazy about it yet, so.
So here's, a little bit more that you guys care to know about me. I used to have double mohawks, Liberty spikes, dreadlocks, 4 earrings. So if that 16-year-old punk rocker, 19-year-old with dreadlocks heard that I was going to be promoting scripts, that kid would have had a heart attack and passed. So a couple things. One, when I think of scripts, and I really don't like the phrase scripts, I think of models, algorithms, and systems on how to have better and more insightful and thought-provoking conversations. So when you think of how you're going to provide for your family and for your goals, and one of the things I love about Keller Williams' mission and vision statement, like a career worth having and businesses worth owning, experiences worth having, a life or legacies worth leaving. How are you guys going to provide? How are you guys going to accomplish that mission? What tools are you going to use?
We're going to use our networks and develop our networks of contacts.
Absolutely. What is the most basic, and this is a big trick question, what are the most basic tools that you are going to use?
Are we talking practice?
Practice, I'd even go so far as just to say words. A very well-respected attorney once said to me that for better or for worse in our society, we live and die in our words. Think about that for a second. Mr. Hickey, I can't tell you enough, your blank blank house is blank blank overpriced. Mr. Hickey, my concern is the market is disagreeing with your pricing strategy. Same thing, 2 different approaches. So I encourage you guys take a couple notes on what I'm about to say. Mike probably knows the books I'm going to Hey, Mike, you want to tell him the books I'm going to recommend?
Fierce Conversation, Don't Split the Difference.
So Fierce Conversations, Dr. Suzanne Scott. It's being taught twice in the region. I strongly recommend you consider taking it. If not, and this is going to be a little side trip, I would strongly recommend that you get Audible. It's $14.95 a month. You can speed up the rate of the speed of the books, but use Automobile University, which is where when you're driving, when you're commuting, rather than listening to Howard Stern and NPR, whatever you listen to, and I respect, put in some books so you can really maximize your time. Now, Fierce Conversations, I've listened to that book 4 or 5 times. I've taken a 2-day class and I've taken a 1-day class. It will be dry like a morning workout. You're not going to be psyched. You're not going to love it necessarily when you're listening to it, but you'll be psyched when you did. I had a conversation so important, I listened to the book just for that conversation. Second book I would recommend is Chris Voss, VOSS, Never Split the Difference. Mike has accused me of having a man crush on Chris Voss. It's not true, but it almost is. Chris Voss is a former international lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. He breaks down real-life hostage situations, and then he breaks down the FBI tactics behind them. In that book I've listened to 6 times. I'm going for 10. Side note, he's got a great YouTube channel in that. So I can't stress enough, and we'll dive in, or Maggie's going to boot me off and take over in a second, is I can't stress enough. In addition to actually lead generating, the most important things that I think you guys can do to better help your dreams, your family, and your goals is to master the art of communication and tactics behind those. Any thoughts, questions so far before we start to actually dive in? Okay, and look for the script book. Hang on just a second. All right, let me skip back to that. You guys got my screen. Let me close this down. So successful agents do every day. lead generate for buyers, sellers, make seller listing presentations, preview real estate. Now, I've been in this business 30 years and I've probably helped train, give or take, 300-400 agents. If you guys had to guess, what are the 2 or 3 most common reasons why agents don't make it? What would those reasons be?
Well, they don't have a plan or they don't work the plan.
Like it. Love it. That actually wasn't what I was thinking, but that is a very important one. I would absolutely add to that to the list. Yogi Bear, I think, is if you don't know where you're going, be careful, you may not get there. What else comes to mind?
They give up before they become successful, meaning
Right.
time goes by, they aren't getting anything, and they give up, where if they stuck with it, they would be successful.
Another
But it
great
might take too long.
Another great one. Any other ideas before I give you my 2 cents? I would say they do not lead generate on a regular basis. Number 1. 2 is they do not practice their most important tools, their words. 3 is, and I'm still failing at this one, they don't listen. Remember, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I'm still failing that every single day. All right. So today we're going to focus on lead generating for buyers and sellers. We're also going to talk about making seller presentations and getting listings, and making buyer presentations, and potentially about previewing real estate. And I think some of the most important things in that, again, are going to be the words that we use. We're going to talk about running the business, showing houses, negotiating contracts. Again, best negotiation book you can do is Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. And then some transaction to management to close. So certainly when we think about lead generation, we think about getting business, closing business, getting opportunities. We want to also uncover motivations. And I think I'll pause right there. We probably have a reasonable amount of people that are familiar with the DISC. And I strongly recommend, if you're not, ask your team leader, your productivity coach to get a DISC class going. It's a personality profile system that's not 100% accurate in any given case, but it's helpful in identifying that. So we naturally in real estate, we have a lot of Ds. Ds are hard drivers, get to it, want to get to the close. So they're the type of agent that has 2 cups of black coffee, picks up the phone, probably like me, talks 1,000,000 miles an hour, and is just trying to get to the appointment. So know yourself so that you're careful not to just drive for the appointment. The other thing I encourage you to do with your lead generation tactics is try for a week, preferably a month. Track your efforts and your conversations. Now, tracking is like putting my hand in the meat grinder. I don't like to do it, but it tells us something. So for example, I've been a TL twice now. I run a team that closed 120 transactions. I lead 200 agents, and I have my hands in 5 different companies: closet storage, property management, trying to get a cannabis company off the ground. And this is all, I think, to me, extremely, extremely important. And what I find when we have a lot of agents prospecting is it's almost like you're getting pulled over. So I'll give you an example. I'm honored to work with a woman by the name of Michelle Peters. She's consistently in our top 20%. And when I started to script practice with her and we do an internet buyer call, it was, how long have you been looking for a home? Have you been pre-approved? Are you working with another agent? It almost felt like there was blue lights behind me and I was getting interrogated. So I find when agents don't practice what they're going to say, it gets that, that's the feeling that a lot of consumers get. Now, versus, hey, Mike, how long have you and your wife Kelly been looking for a home? Have you by chance, you're going to be paying cash or you'd be financing? And let's role play, Mike. When you and Kelly find that home that really makes you smile from ear to ear, what are the 4 key factors in that next great place you call home?
That's an interesting question, Brian. There's a lot of key factors. Space, proximity to the golf course, as you know,
Absolutely.
proximity to my office, and efficiencies.
So what about the space is important to you? Tell me when you think about space, large yard, is it a certain square footage?
3 kids. Three
Wow.
kids need space for them to go.
All right. So you're thinking what, 4 bedrooms at this point? Or are you thinking about 5?
4 would be good.
And tell me how important it is to be close to the golf course for you. When you say close, is that a 30-minute drive? Is that a 10-minute? And why is that important to you?
Well, the whole family plays golf, Brian. So 2 to 3 minutes would be ideal, even on the fairway if possible. But I don't know that we'd be able to afford something like that. But, within a 10-minute drive is so important to us.
So hopefully in that brief snippet, we'll get into more of it later. You saw another important law of lead generation and conversations. 1, try to use open-ended questions. Now, there's a time to use closed questions, yes or no, but try to use open-ended. The other thing I'll tell you with humor, again, remember you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you can tell I'm challenged by that. And as soon as you ask the question, even if it's hard to do, I say this with respect, shut up and let them talk. And if you sense that you're pinging with them, another great question, tell me more. Tell me more about that, or tell me a little bit more. Now, what Maggie's about is starting to debate to boot me off because I got to get on this format a little bit. Hopefully I'm bringing you value. The other thing, and I say this with humor, I want you guys to try to be dope dealers. Now, there's 4 drugs that are very important to the human system. Endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. Endorphins and dopamine start to go off when people experience pleasure. And when you get to them to talk about, Mike, tell me about that, how important that golf is. You want to trigger You want to trigger dopamine and endorphin rushes. And do you know why we want to trigger those dopamine and endorphin rushes? So when they were talking to Roberto Marchetto, if I've got your name correct, they associate feeling really good. Make sense, or I'm a little out there?
Makes sense.
Now, oxytocin and serotonin, I believe, are hard to get via Zoom. You can really, I think majority of the time, I can't remember which one, serotonin or oxytocin. A is in your mother's milk, and B, you can really only get in person. So those 2 are a little bit harder right now. But when you sense somebody gets really excited, try to dive deeper in that for 2 reasons. 1, it'll give you goals that you can really help them realize. And 2 is because they'll feel good and remember how they felt on the conversation. The other thing I would say too, before we get too much farther, and Maggie, I'm going to need your help with the scripts in a little bit. Thank you. Is the other thing I'd ask you guys to toy with is when you hear somebody's goals, try to go 3 to 5 levels deep. 3 to 5 levels deep. It's a quick story. Had a friend, Dave Walconin, very good friend of mine, had a place in West Bolton, Vermont. I don't know if you guys, Vermont, we're colder and, darker in the winters than you guys are. And it's a lot more gray up here, So Dave, and this is going back years, Dave wanted to sell his condo for $170,000. I was going to suggest $157,000. The majority of agents, that I know would be like, I'm sorry, Mr. Hickey, you just can't have that 170. I think it's only worth 157 and 100 to 160. Unintendedly, Mike or Dave might have taken that as Brian's trying to take 13 grand out of his pocket because I'm focusing on the price, the price, the price. Now that is part of the conversation and needs to be had. But I asked Dave, I said, Dave, flatter me. Why do you want to sell? Brian, you know this. I want to go to Florida. Flatter me, Dave. Why do you want to go to Florida? Because I hate the Vermont winters. Dave, one more question. Why do you hate the Vermont winters? You know this, Brian. I broke my leg a couple years ago in a rollerblading accident, and I got a metal rod in my leg, and I feel that metal rod every time it gets below 30 degrees. So Dave, in an effort to get you to Florida, before the cold sets in, and before you feel the throbbing of that metal rod in your leg, I'm going to recommend that we price it at $157,000, because I'm concerned if we price it at 170, the market may disagree with your pricing strategy, and rather than talking about a closing date, you'll be feeling your leg. Now, any thoughts, questions on that? Right there? Okay.
It's good.
So Brian, do you mind if I add something?
Please.
Oh, go ahead, Pamela. Sorry.
No, it's completely logical. It's a win-win.
Yeah, and somebody said it sounds like a little bit more stick than carrot. I appreciate the challenge. We ultimately need a little bit of both. Now, one comment on 3 to 5. I believe there's a law of 3 to 5 in this universe, at least in business. I'm going to recommend that in your real estate business, you have 3 to 5 channels of leads. I'm going to recommend in your financial world, you have 3 to 5 streams of income. I've got apartment buildings, 4 or 5 different businesses. I've got profit share, 3 to 5 streams of income. And when you're working with consumers, try to go 3 to 5 levels deep on their goals and try to close 3 to 5 times. Now, when you're closing, and sign up, that's another thing to potentially track. In tracking, I track the number of dials, the number of conversations, how many appointments set, how many appointments kept. Because that tracking in that 3 to 5 will do us a few things. It'll tell us where we need to get better. And one, for example, what I'm thinking of right now is when I had a 50-50 show rate on my recruiting appointments when we launched KW, I wasn't bringing enough value to the conversation. I was driving so hard to set the appointment. People were saying yes to get me off the phone. Versus when I went into their goals and I found out what would be reasonable to them or important to them, my appointment set to kept ratio went up to 80%. Now, the other thing is, and this is very much, I'll answer the question, the tracking tools in a second, to the person who commented about the stick. And what I'm about to say, I say with love. I hope you guys get to know your clients so well that you can reach up in their rib cage, grab their heart, and give a little squeeze for their benefit. So for example, with Dave Wakonen, if I just focused on price, that house would have sold in 3 or 4 months. He would have been walking through icy roads, living in a dark place that he didn't want to live. I gave him that little squeeze by, with humor, reaching in his leg, touching that metal rod, not with ill intent and not with the intent just to make another deal, but with intent to help a good friend achieve a life goal. That makes sense? And to the person who mentioned that, yes, Maggie, great point. Emotions make people act. Knowing a client's motivation can help you help them. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Brian, one of the things I was going to add was one of the things that you can practice, and a lot of people don't understand that you can practice, besides just scripts, is being present. And one of the most important things is to be present, because you can script all day long. And if you go into a script and you start spieling the script, you are going to sound like the car salesman, and the way that you practice being present is something that I struggle with all the time. And I've actually had people call me out on it and in the middle of a conversation say, you're not with us. you're not here. And we're all busy. Everyone's got so much going on in their lives. And you're listening to someone ask you questions about, the bedroom closet or something, your mind is someplace else. So the way you practice being present is with your family. So, and I think it's also an important aspect of your life to be present with your family. But when you're sitting at dinner, put the phone away and focus on the conversation, and don't be someplace else. Really focus. And it's so impactful for the customers and the clients that they see you actually engaged. Be engaged, be a good listener, and practice being present.
I appreciate you share that, Mike, because we live in a world we have more stimuli than ever before. And I will share what Mike just said. I struggle with it too. My first wife, rest her soul, used to joke that I have a future self, which is another thing to mention at some point. And one of my goals was to live in the present. She used to joke that, so in your future, you're in the present. And what I meant by that was being able to have that tough day, go home, sit down at the family dinner, and enjoy the family dinner. Now with clients, that must have stung when you heard that, Mike.
Oh God, yeah.
So it's like doing push-ups. You're going to try today and you can do 5, and then tomorrow you can do 6 and so forth. The other thing is, what's a great tool to use when you're lead generating and using scripts and dialogues to make sure that people know you heard them?
You can repeat it back to them.
Repeat it back.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So Mike, if what I understand is important, it sounds like right now that where you're living is a little too small for your 3 kids. You guys need some more space to entertain, live as a family. And it sounds like your family's really passionate about golf, which sounds like a really exciting thing. So that, it sounds like these are 2 big objectives. When would you like to get to that, time where we could get you to that 5-10 minutes to the golf course? That was even my high D just trying to kick in to go to the close. Might have been a little too fast. So yeah, really, repeat back, I think is absolutely huge. All right, let me move my scripts around, keep making sure. Now, as a side note, understand, the scripts, most of us, again, think robots, tell a salesperson. The purpose, this is what I'm going to say, and I want to thank Mike for this. The phrase, have form, but be formless. Mike, do you care? You know where that came from?
I can't think of where it came from, but it's probably Chris Voss.
Close. It was Sun Tzu, Art of War. So
yes.
That ancient Chinese warlord, his strategies were applied to business in the Western world to a lot of success. Have form, but be formless. So my recommendation is we start to, and Mag's going to smack me if I don't get into it quicker, and hopefully I'm bringing you guys value. Have form. Practice the scripts. Make sure you know them. Make sure before you start tweaking them, you understand why they're written the way that they're written. And not all scripts are great scripts. But in addition to what Maggie's going to help me share, what KW has to offer, I'd go to tomferry.com, MikeFerry.com, pull down their free scripts. I will tell you, Mike Ferry's a little get him in, get him out, a little bit too hard close for me. Tom Ferry, and I'm sure Maps has a ton of stuff. Tom Ferry, which is Mike Ferry's son, started a competing company, is a little bit more consultative approach. But when I say have form, but be formless, before you start tweaking the forms, because that script doesn't sound like me, that's not how I'd want to say it. Get them ingrained, because a lot of them have specific purposes. And then once you know them, then you can start to have less form. And you can start to mix and match. I played a ton of video games. I don't know if you saw the Master Chief from Halo on my back there. I also built a ton of Legos. So I look at scripts like video games and Lego pieces. If I know them really well, I can grab a little bit of the one that Roberto shared for me. I can grab a little bit of the one that Benjamin shared with me, or Karen shared with me, and I can make them my own. But I can't do that if I just pick up scripts for the first time in my career and start to mix and match. The other thing I will say about have form but be formless, there's times to push for yes, and there's times to push for no. So a lot of people will push for yes, believing that if I can get Stacy Gallagher to say, yes, Brian, I'll sign the CID. Yes, I'll meet with you on X. That we're starting the process of getting familiar, closing, and so forth. Why do you think we may want to use scripts that start with no sometimes? Roberto, is now a bad time to talk. And he says no. What did he just give me permission to do? We get a fair amount of you guys on mute, so feel free to unmute and I'll try to ask your leadership. Okay. So one of the benefits of starting with no sometimes in your conversations is it'll help people feel like they're in control. So I'll give you an example. Vermont requires that at the first substantial contact, we provide a consumer disclosure. The legislative body of Vermont requires that we ask people to sign it, but they are not required to sign it. A lot of my fellow agents go for yes. They get them to sign it. They get them to sign it. They get them to sign it. I like to go for no. Hey, Roberto, just to let you know, at first substantial contact, Governor Scott requires that we disclose how you can work with real estate agents. I go through the pros and cons. Oddly enough, I'm required to ask you to sign this, but legally you don't have to. Would you like to sign it? And he says no. And then I just mark down, I presented at X date. He feels in control of that situation. Any thoughts, questions so far? And very candidly, is this helpful so far? Because I'm a little off the material, but I want to make sure we cover it. Got a few thumbs up. All right.
Love it.
Okay, awesome.
Couple loves it. Yep, very helpful. Thank you.
Brian, and just so if you could go back to someone had asked if what you use for tracking, I thought that would be useful for them.
So the TL, let's see, I'll pull this up right now. This is just a quick one that I ripped myself. And if you email me with subject lines, Ignite, please send tracker, or please send X, I will have my assistant, Rosie Morales, send you any information. And what did I just do? All right. So here's the tracker. And I think in Command, Maggie, there may be some trackers in Command. But let's look at this really quickly.
And you can't see it yet, Brian.
Can't see it.
All right, stop share. That's interesting. All right, let me do shift screen. How about now?
We see Rosie.
I see Rosie.
I think Zoom's lagging this morning because all right, let me do this. When I first logged on, and there was no calendars to it. All right, let me try one last thing. All right. What about now? All right. Sorry, guys. I think we're having a little technical issues. Believe it or not, I have taught some Zoom classes, probably about 100 of them in the last year. And so I'm seeing it. It's under. Let me stop share and I'll reshare again. And then let's break it down. How about now?
There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
So before I go into this, and you guys keep me on task, hold me accountable, tell me what I can do to bring you more value, including Brian, pick it up, change subjects. So one big thing, backdrop. A lot of agents I know get busy getting busy. So they start prepping their thing, they're doing all this. What they're really doing is avoiding picking up the phone. So they're the ones that go out and create websites because we need websites, but they spend all day on a great website, but they don't talk to a single soul. I don't know how many websites that have bought houses in the last year. If you know of one, let me know. So don't overthink your tracking. But I'll do tracking, and then we'll do bunker, and then I think probably in about 10 minutes we'll take a break. Maggie will help me get a little bit better prepared, and then we'll go into some of the KW materials. So first, just mark down the dials, cross them as you go. And now if you were in my office for a coaching session, you said, Brian, I'm just not hitting my numbers. And you pulled out your tracking sheet and you're only making one dial a day. What do you think I'm going to tell you? You got to make more dials. You got to make more dials. Now, then we track the conversations. Now, if you told me that you had 20 conversations and you didn't set an appointment, what do you think that indicates? Possibly we don't have the right scripts. We're not using the right conversations. We're not using the right the right questions. I don't know, I haven't researched, and I apologize directly for front lines. I know as a TL, if I'm not setting an appointment every 4 conversations, I'm not bringing value to the conversation. I would bet on the front lines, it's somewhere between 4 to 8 conversations. And if you're not setting an appointment, yes, if you're calling leads that are 5 years old, that might throw off that number. But if you're talking about leads that came in the last few days and you're talking to 4, I'd bet every 4 to 6 leads you talk to, you should be able to set a Zoom appointment or an in-person appointment, whatever's most safe for you. So that's why we track also appointments set. And then at the end of the day, you should track total contacts made, because we'll start to see a couple things. Why do you think most of the time to lead gen, and or user scripts has been focused on the early morning? To get it done. Eat that frog first, because we find that most people don't lead gen in the morning, get busy, and they don't do it in the afternoon. Side note, a great thing to Google is MIT lead study. Again, MIT lead study. It's probably about 10 years old, so it's off a little bit, but it talked about the number of contacts that people make. Like the average salesperson gives up after 4 contacts. I think most people go like 12. That also came up in a Boomtown study. It talks about days of the week that you're more likely to reach people in times a day. As a recruiter, one of my favorite times to prospect is 12 to 1, because I see people are taking a break. And then side note, the bottom plan, action plan in appointments. Just track that. So I'll back up just a little bit, and you'll use this topic in the scripts called zoom in, zoom out. So I'm going to zoom out for a second. I encourage you guys to look at your bunker where your lead generate and do a few things. First, make sure you've got a written future self. Write down, and do this with your spouse. And if your future self with humor doesn't include your spouse, you get some challenges there. And I've had people say that to me before. Future self is where I want my professional life, social life, physical life, spiritual life to be in 3 to 5 years. And I keep that generally close on my desk. I'll admit I redid it this January and it's not printed just yet. But I do that to remind me why I'm doing this. The other thing you might do is put your 411 up. I currently don't have a coach right now, but yes, I did my own 411 so I can look at it every single week and make sure I know, and including I'm a day behind calling my mother and scheduling an every other week lunch so I see her on a regular basis. The other thing I would recommend that you do, put the scripts on the wall where you lead generate. Because what will happen as you develop that ability to have form but be formless, you'll be on a phone call, Maggie will be really challenging me. I'll look up on the wall, I'll see a script that I've internalized, trigger me to better handle it, and I'll get back into it. The other thing I would include and recommend of your bunker, and this comes from the one thing, make sure you got food. And this sounds weird. In my desk next to me, I got pistachios, nuts. There's a bottle of whiskey that's unopened. I hardly ever drink, but it's there in case it's a long day. I shouldn't even said that. For agents who want to celebrate, again, it's unopened. It's been on for 4 months, but have that bunker so you get it when you're getting the lead gen, you get everything including, especially if you're newer to this, the scripts on the wall. Any thoughts, questions on this? Okay, I'm going to stop share for a second and then get back to the handout. You're going to love Zoom. Hang on a second. All right. Now I lost the presentation. Hang on a second. You'll see my Ignite. Any questions so far while we bring this back up? Maggie, any questions in the chat? Here we go.
I have a question.
Please.
When you, it's kind of going a little bit back, but when you're kind of asking them to sign with you in an agreement, and then they kind of sound like wishy-washy, like they may or may not go with you, and you don't seem so secure, like that you're securing the deal, so to say, and it possibly, you know, because there's some people that are just interviewing other agents, but just not willing to say that. What do you do at that point when you kind of feel like you're up against other agents and you don't feel that they would be forthcoming with saying that I'm actually working with someone or not?
So that's a great question. Ultimately, every situation will be a little bit different. But I'll tell you two thoughts on it. I did try to invite the elephant into the conversation. And generally, I think it was, would you like to role play this?
To role play it, you said?
Absolutely.
Okay, why not?
If you're not comfortable, that's okay.
I'm gonna wing it, but yeah, that's another thing. What role playing is I end up feeling like I'm pressured to finish the conversation, so I end up I feel like I'm choking.
So let's pause right there, and I'll welcome you in a second. Tell me if you prefer to be the consumer or the agent. So here's another big thing. Practice, and this is ahead in the handout. It's going to recommend practicing 15 minutes a day. I think that's a good thing. I do either 15 minutes a day or I do 3 times 30 minutes a week. And again, if you email me Ignite and then you put at the top script practice, I will have Rosie send you out a link to KW Vermont's weekly script practice at 8:30. Sometimes I have 2 agents on, sometimes I've got 5 or 6, and we'll break down these tactics behind this. So I welcome all of you to attend. The more the merrier. It's less reading and it's more practicing and using tactics. But the thing I would say on that for 2 reasons, and this goes back to that woman, Michelle Peters, who I gave tremendous compliment. First started script practicing it, felt like I got pulled over. I drive really fast, that happens, I don't like it. The second, but at the end of a few weeks, it felt like a conversation. So I would argue if you feel that in the practices, you're either forced to finish the conversation, you either need more practice, and I mean that respectfully.
Right.
Or you've got some limiting beliefs. So let's pause right there if you guys are already doing this. And again, I want you guys to feel free to tell me, move forward, let's keep going, Brian, whatever the case is. But let's pause right here about script practice before we even consider it. Maybe we'll get to it when we get back, because we'll take a break in a few minutes. One is try to make them realistic. So in other words, if you and I were script practicing and everything you said, sign the contract, I just said yes. That's not really good practice. Why do you think NHL, NFL, NBA scrimmage so hard? So when they're actually playing against somebody else, they're playing to win. So for script practice, I would consider groups. I would consider accountability partner. That is later in the handout. Maggie, I'm screwing this handout up all over the place. But when you're script practicing, try to think of 3 things your partner did well. Try to look for 2 things that they could improve upon. And this is going to be a little corny. Feel your emotions and articulate that. So if I was just hard closing, hey, are you familiar how to sell houses? No, well then let's get together tomorrow. I don't know if I want to do that, Brian. Why wouldn't you want to do that? 20 minutes? Couldn't we, I could save you a lot of money, and if you feel like, God, this guy's a jackhammer, let your partner know, because you don't want to feel that. Vice versa, if you feel that it's if you feel that the person's not closing, you rock. Thank you very much. I think somebody just brought me barbecue. If you feel like they're wandering and they're not closing, let them know. And remember, I'd also track in your script practices, closing for 3 to 5 times. So I go for the close. You tell me, hey, no, Brian, we just want to think about that. Hey, Jenny, I can absolutely appreciate that. This is a big decision. Would you agree that 3 minds are better than 2? What is it about you want to think about? Let's explore it together to see if we can help you make the right decision for you. You know, and then if they say, well, I want to talk to some other agents. Hey, you know, I can absolutely appreciate that. Is there anything in my presentation that prevented you from feeling comfortable, which is okay if it is, because I want you to make the best decision for you. And then we're trying to bring that elephant into the conversation. And that's again from Fierce Conversations. You know, then I might try a fair trade approach. Hey, Jenny, you know, if I understand you have some hesitations, but if I was to put an easy out clause in this listing where you could terminate in 24 hours without notice, and I can assure you, I'm fine doing that because you're not going to want to request that. Would that make you feel more comfortable in signing with me today? And then side note, I recommend when you go for the close, try to touch their goals. Take a wild guess, folks. How many times?
3.
3 to 5. So Jenny, if you're confident that with a 24-hour out clause, you'd have an easy way out, and you felt more assured that we would be taking that steps to get you down to Florida to avoid the cold winters so you can enjoy those sunny golf courses, would that make you feel more comfortable in signing? Because all I need to do to get to Florida is your signature. And so there's that law of 3 to 5. Now, 3 to 5 closes is not asking 5 times, Roberto, would you sign? Roberto, would you sign? Roberto, would you sign? Because Roberto's going to smack me upside the head and tell me to get out of his house. And although I bet I could run faster scared than he could Matt. For the natural law. We're going to take a break in a few minutes.
Brian, we did have a question. Jacqueline
Please.
had her hand up. I think it's Jacqueline.
Please, go ahead. Do we hear a question coming on, or?
There was a hand up. Maybe they're not comfortable talking with you, Brian.
I can be.
By the way, one of the things that I do in those cases when I'm trying to get someone to sign and they're not comfortable, and I actually really introduce the elephant right into the room, and I literally say to them, I would encourage you to interview 3 other brokers. Definitely, without question, make sure you're choosing the right one and make sure you're comfortable with the person that you're working with. So I would strongly encourage you that at the minimum, you should be interviewing 3 brokers, myself and 2 other people. And it totally disarms them. They get completely comfortable. And almost every single time I'm signing before I leave the room.
You know what we call that's, you know, one of those tactics? Possibly, it's roughly a takeaway. You go for the close, and then you pull it back. You know, generally a similar situation. I went to sign, you know, I went to 2 friends, and they were like friends that you saw at the same get-togethers. You weren't super close, but you saw them, you're familiar with them. And the wife was ready to sign the buyer client. The gentleman, his actual name was Brian. He was making jokes about how much agents make too much money. So I bet he would have signed on the spot to please his wife, because happy spouse, happy house. But I also didn't want to sign it because I felt if we did, he'd resent signing it. So I did a big takeaway. I said, Shane, his wife, really appreciate that. You know, I know this is a big step for you and Brian. Seems like Brian's got a few extra questions. Why don't you guys just talk about it amongst yourself tonight? And if you have any additional questions, let's talk about them in the morning. Who texted me the next morning? Brian. Hey, we spoke last night. Thanks for coming over. We're going to go ahead and sign with you guys. Sign with you. But I thought if I signed him there, it would have been, I did it to make my wife happy. A good reason to do it, but not a great reason for a long-term relationship.
Right.
All right. So it's 9:52. Any questions before we break for 10 minutes? How am I doing? I'm gonna bring you guys value.
Yes, awesome, and keeping us engaged. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. I love teaching, and I can't stress enough. I want to make sure we grow from today. So Maggie, if you can hang on and make sure I, unplug my head from blank, to get those scripts out. Guys, the one thing I'll leave you with when you think about it is in another great book, The Obstacle is the Way. I'm going to really screw up a Ray Bork quote, but one of my favorite quotes goes something like, I probably have a bunch of Bostonians in here, so I'm going to piss them off with screwing up a Ray Bork quote. Goals live on the other side of obstacles, in walls. Along the way, make no excuses, place no blame. Actually, I'm going to pull it up and read it properly, but my summary was, which I screwed up. Generally, whatever the obstacle is in front of you, they want to talk with other agents, their spouse isn't 100% sure, whatever the case is, whatever the obstacle is, that is the way. It's a great book that talks about history of examples from Helen Keller, Abe Lincoln, one of the light bulb guys, I forget which names, his factory burned down, whereas the obstacle is the way. And if you don't want to face it, you're going to have challenges. So I'd say two things before we take a 10-minute break. A, get used to being uncomfortable, because that's where growth begins. And two is, whatever that obstacle is, let's better find a way to tackle it, because on the other side of that obstacle is the goal that you guys want. So it's 9:54. We'll take a 10-minute break. I can't stress enough. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maggie, thanks for your help. Let's channel a little bit. Let me just make sure. I did rip through the presentation this morning. Maybe actually, let me go with the chat. You said we got them in the chat?
Yeah, you want me to just, I'll put them back in for you. You want the scripts and the, let's see, there's the script book.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Got it right here. Let's see. Cancel. Save. Interesting. All right.
Perfect.
Maggie, I had emailed somebody. I don't know if they replied. They talked about like an hour and a half, of live play. I was thinking do maybe a half an hour and a little bit, and also, but do some jump ball format if you're okay with that.
Sure, that's fine. I don't have access to any of the stuff unless someone makes me a co-host to do like breakout rooms or anything like that.
Oh, you know what? Actually, that's the thing area I got to growth. That's my obstacle I got to face is breakout rooms. I've not used those yet. So we may not want to practice with everybody today, but thank you that's an area I got to grow on as a Zoom presenter.
No, it's fine. If you want to do breakout rooms, that's fine. If you give me the co-host, I can make it happen. If you don't, it's fine too.
Yeah, we'll ask everybody when we get back.
Yeah.
Ms. Bove, I'm mixing it up all over the place as usual, so don't hesitate to call me after, give me hell. I think I'm doing all right.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, guys. I was just popping in. I saw your question, Brian, so I wanted to come on and see how you guys were doing, if you had questions for me. But Brian, if you want to make Maggie the co-host, she could help you with those breakout rooms if you choose to do those later, because those are really cool.
Cool.
I would encourage everybody. I see there's 56 people on. I would encourage everybody, if we do breakout rooms, we need to agree that you're staying on Ignite, because it gets really awkward and really weird if Brian puts everybody in breakout rooms and then you come back and there's only 30 people left. That's
only 30
fun.
people. Yes. Yeah.
That's not fun. So if you're going to do breakout rooms, just get the agreement that people will commit to staying on with us. That's all.
Excellent. Maggie, I'm having a brain cramp. Where can I help make you co-host?
Sure. If you go to the participants section.
Yep, I got it. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. You triggered it. All right, let's see.
If you go find my name, I think there's a way under more, you can make me a co-host.
Excellent. Spotlight, make co-host. All right, cool. Beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah, then I'm going to recommend that we do some breakouts when we get back. Excellent. Mr. Hickey, thanks for your comments this morning. I'm enjoying it. I really appreciate it. Please keep doing it.
Yeah, my pleasure, buddy. I'm here to help. Did you get that Ray Bork quote? Did you find it?
You know what? I'm going to Google that right now. It is actually one of my all-time favorites. I was still a punk rocker. Shoot, I might even get a tattoo of it.
No. Goals live on the other side of obstacles and challenges. Be relentless in pursuit of the goals, especially in the face of obstacles. Along the way, make no excuses and place no blame. You had it pretty damn close.
Yeah, well, when everybody gets back, let's bring that one up again.
As you know, I'm a huge Bruins fan, so he's one of my sports heroes.
So Brian, while you're on break and I am here, do you have any questions that you would like me to answer for you? Are you cool?
Nah, I think I'm good.
All right, I'm going to jump off then.
Everybody's either blowing smoke my direction and telling me we're bringing them value, or we're actually.
You're a really good presenter. So they are very lucky to have you today. Thank you very much for spending some time with them and in the region. So thank you, Brian.
Actually, a real quick introduction before you jump. Jennifer Bove, this is Michael Hickey, our rock star director of development at PC. Jen's been KW what now 10 plus years and doing a phenomenal job with the region, as well as I believe your OP is down in Rhode Island now these days as well. Excellent.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. Well, nice to meet you, Michael.
Yeah, you too. Where you're out of?
Rhode Island.
Oh, Rhode Island.
You know that little dot there.
I know it well. I know it well.
We are. Yes. All right, guys. I'm going to let you get back to your genius and what you're doing. So keep it up. Hi, Maggie. So nice to see you. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too.
Miss you.
I miss
nice
you too.
To meet you, Jen.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to jump out. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Not even.
Jessica, if you could unmute. Let's have a quick chat about your listing. We could help you here. Congratulations.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Congratulations on that listing. That's amazing.
Thanks. It's my very first of anything, actually. I got a listing for a buyer and seller, so sell and buy. So I'm it's kind of a lot real quick.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Let me see if I
really
can get my video.
So which market center are you working out of?
In Easton.
Maggie.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey there. So Maggie could absolutely lead you in the right direction to make sure that you feel very confident and comfortable in your open house this weekend. So Maggie, who can you connect her with that could help her get everything ready for this weekend?
So you can talk to myself, you can talk to Derek or Scott, and because I know Scott should be there actually today too. So if you need something, or if you need help with your open house or strategies to do it, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, because
Thank you.
we want to make sure that you are good to go.
Thank you. So I've actually helped with a few open houses on my team. So I have done a few. It's just my very first, like on my own, like my actual listing. But I am on the Gavea team, so they've let me join in and help out. And I've done a few for Dan over the past couple of months.
Yep. And
Jessica, how
Dan,
did you
Dan
get
knows what
this?
he's doing. Dan's
He
been
does, he
around the
does, for
block a
sure.
few times. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, no, for sure he does. I've
Yeah.
known him for a few years, so I finally decided to get my license and get on the team. So
Jessica, how did you get this first listing?
so I was actually doing an open house for Dan, and I was there a little later than I should have been because somebody was, chatting my ear off, which worked out really well because I caught these people right at the last minute. I was pulling up the open house signs from the, from the corners of the street, and they're like, "Did we miss it?" I was like, "Well, the house was vacant. Nobody was going to come back." So I was like, "All right, let's go take a look." And they actually wanted that house right then and there, but of course they weren't ready. They had to first like get their house ready to list and everything. So I went and talked to Dan, and we got them to sign with us. So we got them kind of like, everything in order, got their house ready, got it listed, got the photos. So it just went live yesterday. And we're doing a double open house Saturday and Sunday. So it was like kind of by chance, really.
That's great. And
totally by chance.
I hope there are people on here that are listening to that story, because we talked about that on Monday.
Huge.
That's huge, right, Michael? Like
Huge, huge, unbelievable story.
Yeah. If you, hi, Roberto, nice to see you. If you don't have a database or you're sharing a friends, like I heard on Monday, go out there and do open houses. Jessica just picked up her very first listing. Jessica, how long have you been in real estate?
Just a couple of months, but I actually I wasn't full-time for the first few months, and now I'm on medical leave from my other job. So it opened up full-time for here because it's not as strenuous on my other job.
Well, I hope you guys dive into this more. I actually have to jump off for another call, but this is such a great story, Brian. You'll want to ask her if you didn't hear about it. So Jessica,
Absolutely.
Congratulations. Good luck with it. Maggie's got you covered.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Great to see you. All right, folks, it's 10:04. Let's just give it about another 60 seconds and we'll rock and roll again. Can't stress enough. Thank you for your time this morning. I do hope we're bringing you value. Real estate's a phenomenal business. I've been in it 30 years, and very candidly, KW has changed my life. I learned more in 3 years of working with KW and how to run a business than a decade leading one of the top Century 21s in all of New England. And I mentioned for those who are signing on that I have my hands in, I think a total of 7 companies. I've taken basically what the MREA taught me, and I'm working at, in some cases really well, in some cases not so well, applying the MREA to a closet storage business, cannabis company, property management company. So I love the fact that you chose to partner with us. Welcome to the family. All right, Mr. Hickey, would you be so kind as to read that quote from us from Ray Bork again?
Yes, absolutely. Ray Bork, goals live on the other side of obstacles and challenges. Be relentless in pursuit of the goals, especially in the face of obstacles. Along the way, make no excuses and place no blame.
Place no blame. The other
Take
agent
responsibilities. Love it.
And always just look at yourself, because it's the only thing you can control is yourself. As a side note, I encourage each and every one of you to not let the market dictate your success. It's going to be, I think, a very interesting year for most of us. And this is all the more reason why I want to get purposeful about removing limiting beliefs and also getting comfortable with your language so we can prospect. One more comment on the 3 to 5 that I forgot to mention. Part of the reason why that 3 to 5 touching people's goals in closing 3 to 5 times is so very important is we, from a very early age, are taught in schools on models of 3 to 5. Supposedly the Marine Corps is built on models of 3 to 5, 3 in a squad, I think, and so forth. So it's something that's clicking with our head from an early age. All right, removing your limiting beliefs. Has anybody had any limiting beliefs removed this morning, or does somebody have a limiting belief that's gnawing at them right this moment? Says either I can't do this, they don't want to hear from me, it's a bad time to call them. Anybody have any of those?
So I will say,
go ahead, Ryan, please.
So one that I've had, so I'm only 23, so I'm still kind of new. So one is that I'm young and that, the experience part will come into play, and, they won't want to sign with me because I'm so young and inexperienced and everything. So that's one I've been trying to, overcome, obviously, but a little difficult in the beginning.
So I appreciate your vulnerability and your authenticity. Side note, vulnerability leads to strength, because as we expose ourselves and we sometimes get cut, we scar, we grow, we become tougher. So I appreciate you sharing that. So a couple 2 cents on that. One is, and this back to that kid with the Mohawks, the Liberty Spikes, is play the game. Now, what I mean by that is if it means dressing up and wearing ties, like I wore for many, many years, 3-piece suits, because I got into the business when I was actually, I think, 23. And so I had that same thing. So how I personally overcame it was really playing the game, plus really diving into scripts, reading, strategy. That's where I first started to read The Art of War. So that's my suggestion, is to help you remove that limiting belief. The other thing I would do, are you an independent agent or are you on a team?
Independent.
Okay. So in that case, if you ever hear somebody, you sense somebody, I would, ask them the questions, any concerns that you have, try to bring the, elephant into the room. And if they bring up your age, how many agents in your market center?
I don't know the exact number.
Throw a dart.
I have no idea.
Okay. So let's say you're at KW Vermont, there's 200 agents. So there's a time to, whether you're a team member or independent, there's a time to use the words based upon your sole performance, or there's a time to leverage other people's. So another phrase, and it's no big surprise, got 3 parts to it: OPT, OPC, OPM. Other people's time, other people's contacts, other people's money. Now, what that means is you're going to use other people in what I'm about to say. Hey, Mr. Armstrong, I can absolutely appreciate if you have any concerns. Let's say I brought up your age. Ryan, you seem like a nice guy, just a little concerned, you're a little bit young at this, and I like you, but I don't know if you're the guy I want to handle the sale of my apartment buildings. Hey, Mr. Armstrong, I can absolutely appreciate why you say that. Side note, this next tactic is a feel, felt, found. I can appreciate why, you say that. I've had some other customers mention it. And what they actually found is, by me choosing to partner with Keller Williams, we have over 200 agents in the area. You're not just hiring me. You're hiring Brian Armstrong, our principal broker and our team leader. You're hiring Mike Hickey, our productivity coach. So when you work with me, you're working with 2 other individuals, actually, frankly, 200 other individuals that are going to help me help you get this property sold. Brian personally owns a bunch of apartment buildings. I'll be consulting with him. We'll even get the best of both worlds. Now here's the obstacle is the path. You'll get the best of both worlds, because while I can get you on the phone with Brian, he knows a lot about apartment buildings. You're not going to find a more motivated agent in the marketplace than somebody such as myself, who has all the time to make you the priority. Now here's a close. Do you see the benefit of that? And if they say yes, and it's sincere, you're good. If they're stammering, hauling, you want to repeat. Does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Kind of lean on Keller Williams and all the resources that are available to me, and everyone that I've kind of made a relationship in Keller Williams with and everything.
Totally.
Thank you.
Now, an example, if they said they had a bad experience with the KW agent, that's when you actually go, that's exactly why when you hire me, you're hiring me, you're not hiring, so-and-so, is an example. Now, the other thing is, let's go back to your age, your youth. So if they brought the elephant in the right room, one of the first things, I might do is say, well, Mr. McDonald, I can appreciate why you have that concern. Do you know why I think it might be a tremendous benefit? Wait for a pause. Now, side note, typical agent's going to go right into, well, let me tell you why that's a benefit. I try to get a pause to get the conversation going. So rather than me preaching to them, it's an actual conversation. So I pause and you say, oh, why? Because all the other agents that you're talking to, they've been in business, they've got 500 clients, they're going 5,000 other miles an hour. I've got the time to make you a priority. I don't think you're going to find an agent who's going to work harder for you, because I know you can make or break my career. And then you might tie into the other things that we just said about, partnering with the TL and stuff like that. Any other limiting beliefs that anybody's having? Okay. All right. So we'll rock and roll as we get through it, try to get to the presentations. So benefits of using scripts, we talk a little bit about it. Have form, but be formless. The scripts help you better do your job, have more confidence in it, and allows you to stay focused on the conversation. Now, what I mean by that is when I ingrain a script in me so well, I can focus on what Mark is saying, or what Stacey Gallagher is saying, or Deanna Ferguson is saying. When I'm wondering what to say next, I'm not listening. Make sense? So I can't stress enough, guys, and I'm sorry this sounds a little pontifical. Number 2 or 3 reasons, in my opinion, are the hundreds of agents I've helped train. They don't lead gen enough. They don't practice what they're going to say. And they either don't close or they don't listen. So think about it. All right. Scripts are out for consistency in what's being said. How to use scripts. Role model memorizing scripts. Memorization, the practice of internalization. So again, actually this next slide, I think I saw it this morning, I do really like, and this is a really good visual. Read the script out loud 5 times. It's gotta be corny. Repeat the same sentence while smiling. Let's pause there for a second. If I wasn't on video and I was just really talking because I was having a bad day, do you think I was loving what I was going to do, and would you meet with me? Based upon the energy I've hopefully brought you this morning, if I was talking with you on the phone, and I had that same enthusiasm, would you feel it? So, I would encourage you guys, make sure you're smiling. Also, I know some agents who stand up while they prospect. I'm one of those 5,000 people that bought a stand-up desk and never use it. But Maggie shook her, hands. Roberto, I'm sure some other people did. So I use my hands a lot. You make sure you're in that environment, because people will hear you smile. The other thing is, even if you're not loving it, make sure when you pick up the phone and when you're practicing, smile it, even if it's forced, because it'll start to take over for a while. One of my favorite games to play with my stepdaughter, she's grumpy in the morning, is I offer to pay her not to smile. And I was like, well, if I paid you $2 if you're not smiling, I work my way up, and all of a sudden her lip starts curling and she can't stop thinking about $1,000. I even went up to $1,000 once. And of course she couldn't, but and then you watch the kids' energy change in under 2 minutes because they smiled. And then she goes from having a really grumpy morning to getting ready for school, brushing her teeth, and having a great morning.
Hey, Brian, sorry to interrupt. Could I just interject for a quick second? Something that has worked for me in the past is anytime you're prospecting is to have a mirror. And it's because you can see yourself smiling. And when you don't smile, looking at yourself in the mirror actually remind you to smile. So I thought that I share that with everyone.
Please, anybody has anything to share, please. The other thing I'd probably do, I'd say, hey, there's a good looking guy. I'm great. So I'm going to talk for a second, this off track. Do some affirmations. I love prospecting, so I do it every day. If that one's a little bit charged, I have to force it. I generate high quality leads daily. My sphere of influence sends me high quality leads daily. Play with the affirmations because it gets your head in the right direction. And again, we're gaming ourselves. Great book, No Self, No Problem. Ask the question, if the brain's a tool, who's using it? If the brain's a tool, who's using it? All right, I'm getting a little deep here. Sorry, guys. All right, so I'd love to go through a few algorithms and then potentially do something I've never done as a Zoom instructor, but Maggie's going to save my blank. Possibly go into some group breakouts for 10 minutes. So, but let's rip through some algorithms. And I think, do you guys all have the Ignite scripts? Do you get your handbooks? Okay. And they are in the chat if you need them. But so I encourage you as we get into breaks, use some script. Practice is going to be forced, but listen to your emotions, how you're feeling when the other person's playing. Remember 2 things that they could improve upon, 3 things they did well. The other thing I would say, if you're script practicing with somebody who's newer, give them some easy wins, but over time, ratchet it up, including some of my favorite script practices were some of the worst and most toughest people to practice with, because then I'd call the general consumers. They were easy. But you don't want to be so hard that the high I's or the S's feel like they're being emotionally stunted. But some algorithms to write down. I encourage you guys to take notes. So you're going to see it in one of the first scripts. Forward. Family, occupation, recreation, dreams. If you've taken bold, you probably know the acronym of Ford sandwich. If you haven't taken bold, we're trying to launch one for next month, or actually later this month. Feel free to talk with us. Amazing course. But bold uses the phrase a Ford sandwich. I'm going to speak really fast. This is not how fast you want to talk. Hey, Maggie, Brian, Armstrong, Con. I know it's been a long time since you moved in that house a year ago. It's just touching base. How's everything going with the kids? Great, so forth. Family. Recreation. Hey, last time we talked, you were asking me for some names in Vermont to, which mountains you recommend going to. You guys been on any ski trips? Then I'll do an ask. Hey, I was just curious, I've actually missed working with you and your family so much that I find that I have a gaping hole in my life and I just don't know how to fill it. I was curious if you knew anybody else I could help start that next great chapter and find the next great place to go home. Side note, buy your next property versus find the next great place to call home. What's going to jazz you more? I also like the phrase next great chapter because it's exciting. Then I'll go, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Sounds like you get some great ski trips. Then I'll go back to Ford. I get the recreation in there, out of the dreams. Hey, last time, you and your husband and I talked, you guys were planning, a big trip to Europe. How's that going? Did you ever get that done? So I probably did a little bit of a poor job there, but again, family, occupation, business ask, recreation dreams. Now, oddly enough, I'm probably like most agents. I didn't love calling my sphere of influence. So when I did a forward with a sphere of influence, I would finish up, hey, Liza, is there anything I can do to help you out? And Liza would probably say, like the last person they said, actually, this is a true story, is person said, what do you mean? I said, well, I asked you for help. I asked you if you knew anybody was looking to buy or sell real estate. What can I do to help you? That tactic's called a fair trade. Please write that down, fair trade. That person told me they couldn't find anybody to mow their lawn. What do you think I did for the next 15, 20 minutes? Got them names of lawn mowing services. I even did a shout out to the entire market center. Hey, I'm looking for a lawn mowing service for XYZ zip code. Anybody got any? Called the person back. That probably made an impact on them. So fair trade is another acronym to write down. Now the fair trade is, hey, we use an expired example. Again, not so fast. Hey, you know what, Brian, I apologize. I'm just going to relist with my agent. They put so much time into it. Hey, you know what? I can absolutely appreciate that, Karen. Let me ask you this. Respecting that there's a lot of money on the line, and most people in your situation will want a second opinion. Do you feel that if we were able to spend 30 minutes talking about how I'm able to help sell homes that don't sell the first time, you think it might help you either A, confirm your decision to relist with your agent, or why 200 people or 100 people last year chose to list with myself and my team? Again, it was 30 minutes. I'm just asking for 30 minutes. At the end of that conversation, that wasn't the script. End of that conversation, I'll either confirm your decision to relist or potentially open to another path to optimize the value of your house. So in 30 minutes, fair trade. Here is a really important one. My first wife, rest her soul, drilled this into my head. Feel, felt, found. Feel, felt, found. I'm going to say it one more time. Feel, felt, found. practice it for years before I felt pretty good at it. So you got to practice it and trip it up. So that's going to be, we were just script practicing this morning. We've got a lot of resorts, properties in Vermont. One of my favorite places now where Mike lives, down in Stowe. So we have people come in and try to buy condo hotels, and they want to use USAA or Wells Fargo National. Vermont's supposedly one of the 4 hardest states in the nation to close a deal in. So I'll use a feel, felt, found. Hey, Mike, I can absolutely appreciate how you feel that way. I've had a lot of buyers who originally came in from out of state, felt the same way. And Mike, do you know what they found? By actually working with a local lender who was very familiar with condo hotels, they had much smoother transactions. They often saved money and time, and they were able to close those transactions with a lot less stress. So feel, felt, found. It connects with our innate desire to be like others. Feel, felt, found. Other things, we talked about the takeaway. The other thing that you might do is, I'm sure there's a couple others that are missing, so maybe let's just hop in. All right. Any questions before we try breaking into some rooms for 10 minutes? And I encourage you guys, practice the scripts that you think you're going to need in the next couple days. So I think it was Pamela, you're going on a listing presentation today. I would practice closing for the order. I would practice closing 3 to 5 times and practice leaning into the obstacle. Hey, Pamela, that might be thinking about other agents and so forth, and maybe even use Mike's, approach, right? I would recommend in that case. So Maggie, how do you think we're doing? Can we break into groups in in a minute or two? Or do you think we need some more information before we do that?
Typically, does everybody here have the script book, first of all, to make sure you guys have a script to practice on? If you don't, if you have that in front of you, pull it up. If you don't know which one to choose, a good one to practice really is the Ford. The Ford script is one that you'll use again and again and again. So definitely have that up and make sure you're practicing. And if you don't know which one to choose, practice that one with the person that you're going to be in the group with. This is definitely, we want to make sure that you guys go into your rooms and that you participate with each other, practice your scripts with each other. And then when you come back, we can talk about your challenges and any issues that you might have had with the scripts that you're working on.
And before we break into the rooms, is there anything we could cover right now, Maggie, Mike, or I, to bring better value to you while you go practice these? Do you want to talk about any ideas? Do you want examples? You get a Ford as a good recommendation. I think it's a great time to do your New Year's call. Hey, I was just touching base, Karen, to see if your goals for 2022 included starting a great new chapter of your life and buying a new home. Anything we could do. Okay, I will not be able to be in the room group. I do not want to take up a spot. Appreciate that, Janice. Here's my big ask to everybody. If we're bringing you value, we'll break at 10:26. We got a couple that it looks like won't be able to participate.
That's fine. Just don't go into the room, and I'll shuffle people around so that there's at least 2 to 3 people in each room.
And practice for 10 minutes. Get uncomfortable. Screw up. Trip up. And be vulnerable and be authentic, including if God, I just screwed that up. I felt like, I didn't feel like I got that at all. It's all part of the process. All right, let's break for 10 minutes into groups. And Maggie, put me anywhere you want.
Got it.
All right, so we got to all go from there. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Two. 6.
Maggie, thanks for all your help. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Making sure everybody's got one. Okay.
And again, feel free to throw me anywhere you want.
Okay, there's 2 people in there, 3 people in there, 2 people in there, 2 people in there. All right, everybody's got at least.
I'll scroll down and jump in on ones that I see.
Yes, just scroll it. Yeah, just choose one and click join basically on any of them. I, for some reason, can't put you in one. So anybody with greens have people in it. Hey, Janet, do you want to practice scripts with somebody? Oh, no voice. Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Hey, understand. If you want, you can go in just to listen if you want. Would you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Barbara. Mark and Barbara, would you like to go into a room? Oh, Mark left. So Barbara, you want to go into a room or are you good? You're muted, so I can't hear you.
I was in a room and I didn't hear anything. So
Okay, so Ryan's in there. Ryan was not active.
nope. I saw him, but I didn't hear him or anything. So
Okay, so let me throw you into a different room then. Hold on.
try that again, Maggie.
Okay. All right. I have to move you somewhere else because once you move,
Okay.
Hey guys, looks like I got disconnected, so I lost the room. I don't know which room I was. I was in the room with Stacy.
With
So
Stacy?
somebody can help me to join. Yeah.
Sure. Let me see if I can find out where you were before. Hold on one sec.
Somehow the internet got
That is
I lost the
okay.
connection.
You were with Stacy?
Yeah, Stacy
Okay.
and
Jen.
Jen
Okay.
and Lynn.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
Jen.
Let me get you over there. Hold on one sec.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thanks.
being recorded.
I hate when the breakout rooms end.
Right in the middle of a conversation, right?
Yeah, right.
We
in
were
the middle
doing
of a
so
sentence, you're
good.
like, Doug was just about to say something that had so much meaning.
So profound, right?
God.
I left you on a cliffhanger.
Yes.
What
What was
wanting
it,
more.
Doug?
Leave them wanting more.
Share with us all.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
let's hear from everybody. What did you feel? What was it like? I mean, and be authentic and be vulnerable. Let's hear from 5 people. What'd you think? What'd you like? How'd it feel? Doug.
Super awkward.
Who just said super awkward?
I did.
Amy, thank you.
I think it's good practice for sure. Gets you out of your comfort zone and really kind of makes you work on those either awkward conversations or smooth going ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So we heard from 2. I want to share one story with Liza's permission. Let's hear from 2 more.
I thought it was very comfortable because I don't know Roberto. I think it'd be more uncomfortable with people I know.
And that is a very common denominator. Yeah. Agents would love to call 5,000 strangers they'd never talked to, but call that kid they grew up with and ask them for a deal. I'll go call the 5,000 strangers.
I am one of those agents.
Yeah. So remember, the obstacle's the way. So whether you warm up with strangers and then move to SOI, I know some people that do 5 expireds, 5 FSBOs, 5 just listed, 5 just solds. You got to game yourself and find out where to help yourself get going. Other people will break it up by the day. Let's hear from one more, and then I'll share with Liza's permission a little bit of our great breakout. All right, we'll go right ahead. So I compliment Liza tremendously. You could tell she was nervous. She was awkward. She even stuttered at some point, but I congratulate her because she did it. The other thing too is, and I get some real good feedback. I think it was Pamela. Sorry, your picture's not right in front of me. It was just talked about the energy. So I think it was something about you had really good energy. I felt comfortable. I was talking with you. Liza, how much nerves did you have when you were practicing it? And then when we got over it, how'd you feel?
My heart was racing, my palms were sweating, and I thought in my head, oh, I can do this. Will you explain what to say? I'm like, oh, I got this. And then I opened my mouth and I just like garbage came out.
I think you said you were considering another occupation at that moment. Yes. Great. How do you feel afterwards?
I felt great, actually, because you and Pamela were very supportive. And I realized that it really is just a skill that I really have to practice. But when we started this whole class this morning, I'm like, I can read through a few scripts. I'll be fine. I'll just get started. And now I'm like, oh my God, I have to practice a lot.
And appreciate your authenticity as well as your vulnerability. Hopefully, as you guys felt safe with each other, you laughed, you screwed up and stuff like that. You can see how beneficial it is. Imagine if you practice this 300 times. Hopefully, I've given you a little sense that I have practiced these 300 times. And if we've got time in the last hour, I'd love to do jump ball, meaning that when you throw out scripts, you throw out objections, I'll handle them, not because I'm a megalomaniac and just want to hear myself talk, although that's part of it. But hopefully we can identify some tactics and share them, and certainly love to do jump ball if in the other direction as well. So a couple things that I want to thank Liza for and Pamela as well. If you catch yourself tripping up on the phone, this is what Brian does. I'm not saying it works for you. I invite the elephant into the conversation. Well, if I can actually speak today, what I mean to say is, and I go right to it. Because let's all laugh at Brian tripping up. Because if I don't know, Benjamin, and I think he's on the other end of the phone. Side note, you had video today. Most of the time, you're not going to have video. You know, if I think Benjamin's laughing at me in his head because I'm screwing up, then great. Let's have a group laugh and let's keep moving. So the other thing I would watch, and this one's still challenging me, when it comes to contact information, when it comes to phone numbers, when it comes to appointments, and I still screw this up 20, actually almost 30 years in. Roberta, would it be okay if I asked for your email address? Versus, Roberta, what's the best email address to reach you at? Think about that for a second. Would it be okay? No. I don't want to get spammed. Hey, what's the best email to reach you at? Hey, it's Brian at strongwillvt.com. So watch the natural flow of energy in the body. You know, the other thing too, when, you know, would it be all right if I asked for an appointment? I do that. Hey, would you mind if I suggest we get together? Versus, when would be a great, you know, time to get together and further discuss your goals of buying more properties and building your property management company. The other thing too is, and this is totally off scripts, off the agenda, but Maggie hopefully will be added to it, or at least maybe you guys will never ask me to teach again. When it comes to the appointment setting with spouses, what's the most common thing that you get? And Mike probably knows the one I'm going to use. So Mike, hey, you know, you and Kelly are really busy this week. Hey, what about when would be a great time to get together? Would, 3 o'clock on Thursday work, or 4 o'clock on Friday?
I think I'll have to ask my wife.
So let's pause right there. Tactic number 1 on setting the appointments. I don't care if you have 0 appointments on your calendar. You're still truthful if you said, I have Friday at 3 available, or Thursday at 4, whatever I just said, because it's still true. Those are available. Anybody know why I try to give 2 times?
It's an easier choice.
Bingo. Because most of the time I'm like, well, hey, when you want to get together, Mike be like, yeah, let me check my calendar. I'll get back to you. And I'll be waiting at the lift at 8 o'clock, wondering if he's going to meet me to talk about the sale of his house, and he's never going to show up. Now here's the second key thing with spouses and time. Mike, let's go back into that role play. Hey, Mike, first and foremost, happy spouse, happy house. So certainly don't want you to set an appointment, without talking to Kelly, Kelly first. But if Kelly was able to make it at 4 on Friday, would you be able to make it at 4?
Yeah, I think we could probably do that.
So then why don't we do this? I'm sure your calendar fills fast. Mine absolutely does. Let's tentatively mark down Friday at 4. I'll text you Thursday just to make sure it works for Kelly. And if not, nope. Now I'm doing the takeaway. If not, no problem. We'll just reschedule. I'm looking forward to getting together with you and Kelly and talking about how we can get you close to the golf course. Try to finish up with touching their goals. Now, you will get a higher rate of cancellation on those, because he'll pick up the phone and say, hey, I set a tentative appointment at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock on Friday, we got dinner plans at 5. We got 20 people coming to the house. What were you thinking? But you'll find that when you get those yeses, they'll be more likely to reschedule. And so back to your bunker really quick. If the algorithms I've shared, feel, felt, found, which 2 times, the tentative, write those down so they're in your bunker. So, when you're like 85% of us, if not 100% of us, when we first started practicing this stuff, we're getting purposeful about it. You're getting nervous. Liza could look up and say, yeah, I have an opening on, you could see it in your bunker. It'll trigger your head. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I just got a fired rescue chopper text. That's why I try to be present. Hopefully that was the first text. Maybe second I looked at while we're doing this. All right, my apologies. If I had any other thoughts about stuff on the phone, the one more thing about leaning into the obstacle. Ryan McDonald, anyone who wants to practice scripts, I encourage you guys, reach out. I'll get back to that story in a second. Ryan, that was awesome. Find some people, and I'd recommend you get 3 people to practice. I think Carissa, I gave this recommendation to. Find somebody that you could help. Maybe they're brand new like you. You've just been doing it a week longer. Because as you start to teach them what you've learned, you'll become more purposeful, which is a great reason why Mike, Maggie, and myself have been taught by KW. Teach classes, because you'll be so nervous you're going to fail it. You'll rock it by diving into it. The second aspect, shoot, just lost my train of thought, would be, second person. Somebody who's at the same level that you are. Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed. Yes, I'm dating myself. Some of you probably don't know who I'm talking about. I turned 50. The other thing too is then go find somebody who intimidates you. Sort of with humor, the proverbial movie where the guy goes to prison, he goes, picks on the biggest guy in the prison yard. It's that type of thing. Now, the reason why you want to do that is because you'll get good at teaching others. You'll teach yourself the algorithms to help somebody else. Then you'll have a good 50-50 spar. Then you're going to have somebody, excuse my language, who kicks your ass and it's smarts after you get off the phone with them. But they'll make you get better by doing that. The other thing
is, Brian, can I jump in?
Please.
Hey, so one of the things that we do too as agents when we're scripting practice, we kind of know what we're leading into, right? We actually ask leading questions or answer leading questions to make sure that, okay, we're just going to get this script along, make sure everybody's comfortable. But the reality is that we need to challenge one another and set up that roadblocks. Don't just say, oh, I can give you my phone number, or, I know someone that wants to sell. Let me give you their email address. Actually set up roadblocks. Brian and I used to do script practicing together on Wednesday mornings, and we have to get that back on our calendars. Ours were for recruiting, but we would battle. I mean, it would be like a battle royale, and we had someone else with us, a third person, and it was really great. It was really great training because it wasn't just easy. It wasn't just, oh yeah, sure, I'll take the appointment. I mean, we would definitely throw up obstacles. And, so don't just, answer the questions that are coming and lead down the road, because that's really not practicing. That's just reading scripts.
Yep.
Which is important too, by the way.
Yeah, and that's another great idea. Thanks for sharing that. Third person can be really, really helpful. Any questions on ahas, challenges to what we've talked about so far? I'm checking this chat. Hang on a second. Any questions, challenges? Brian, I call BS on that. Okay, awesome. All right. So you got, the screen said, oh, no, I'm not screen sharing, so I'm the only one looking at it. That's great. Sorry, guys. Hang on a second. I have found the enemy. It is me. And you guys, as a side note, this is going to sound pontifical, you guys will be your biggest obstacles. Whether you let your, limiting beliefs overrule you, or whether you choose not to practice. Denny Grimes, a bold coach, actually gave me a great analogy 2 weeks ago. He said, you're either paying for bold $799 up front, or you're paying about $40,000. And what he meant was people are either going to choose to sign up for bold and get the skill sets, or they're going to pay that higher price in lost opportunity. So you guys can choose to practice scripts on your clients, or you can choose to practice scripts and dialogues and algorithms and systems on how to have more purposeful conversations with each other. And with humor and respect, I'm at peace with whatever decision you make, as long as you are. And side note, that's a great phrase right there with clients. If you get a client that's going to overprice, or you get a buyer who's going to offer 70 cents on the dollar in a market where they sell at 104%, Ms. Crane, I'm at peace with submitting this offer if you are. My only concern is, in this marketplace, we're seeing average sales to list price ratio of 104%. So are you at peace if the seller doesn't accept your offer? Great way to help people, because they'll say, no, I'm not at peace. All right. So let's do this. Let's take a 10-minute break. we're going to wrap up probably about 12, not 12:15. Maggie, I apologize. I got a team meeting at 12. But what I'd love to do is cover a couple quick things that KW New England asked me to cover, some basics about running your business, DNC, and then let's see if we can get the last 10, 15 minutes to do some jump ball, throw out objections. Side note, my nickname in KW Vermont is Panda. So we can play the last 15 minutes Stump Panda and see if you guys can get me an objection that we can't handle, and we'll break down the algorithms, unless you'd rather do the reverse, unless you'd rather have everybody else handling. So it's 10:56. We'll see you back at 11:06, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Liza, I sent you something. I sent you a chat, Liza.
Okay, Pamela, I'll look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maggie, can I ask you a question real quick?
You may. What kind of
So,
script?
on command, for some reason, it's not letting me create an opportunity on, I don't know, like it's like my account or like, I don't know what you would call it, but so it's not letting me create a opportunity unless I'm under the productivity coaching team.
Correct. So you must be on the PC, in the PC program?
Yeah.
Yeah. So which means you're on the PC team, right? So they want you to create it underneath the PC program because
Okay.
they want you to be able to track it for you. So that is why it's there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
But-
they purposely limited you to just putting it on the team so they can help you with it and follow along with you.
Gotcha. And then, so do I have to though, like resync all my contacts onto that profile? Or do I just have to manually put it in every time I get an opportunity?
So
just
in
for
this
that?
case, right, so what you would do, and I would definitely speak to your PC coach. What art market center are you with?
700. I think it's Sam, I think is,
Okay.
I think.
Not sure who the PC person is there, but I would definitely talk to him about it. But what I
Okay.
would do because we do the same thing here, we just basically have them move the person, basically just move the person over to the team account briefly to create
Okay.
the opportunity and then move them back.
Oh, so
So,
once I'm done
yeah.
with kind of the coaching and everything, all my activity and everything will be moved back to my
Yeah,
personal.
well, you're gonna want to move that person over immediately, right? You want to keep it in the personal account,
Right.
but to create this opportunity, I'm assuming this is not a lead from the PC program. It is just your
An
personal
outside
script.
one, yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, if it was my PC program, I'm not going to speak for them, but what I would do is I would have you move it to the team account real quick so you can create the opportunity and then basically transfer it back into your personal account. That way you can just
Okay.
create the opportunity real quick to do it.
All right. I'm gonna actually try to do it right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you like could help me how to figure that out without looking at it, but
So to change what account the person is in, if you select the person, if you're going to your contacts, just like put the little check mark next to that person, and then a bulk change account. It's the last option on the list.
so this is going from the coaching back to my personal.
This would be from your personal to the coaching. So I'm assuming where is your contact? Is your contact in
Right now, so I had it in my personal. I actually moved it over to the coaching account.
Personal. Right. So
So
it's in
now-
there now, but now you need to
Right.
get it back. Right.
Right.
To your personal
So
account.
so I did that so that way I could create my opportunity. But now, so I have two opportunities that I had created before starting the coaching that are under my personal account.
Yeah.
Then I have now I have this one under the coaching team. So now do I leave that there for now? Or
So
should
you
I
can't move opportunities. Opportunities are there where they are. The contact is what you can move back and forth.
Right. But now it won't. So now do I set every opportunity I have to create under the coaching team for right now?
It seems like that is the way your PC program runs. You need to
Okay.
verify that with your PC coach, but if it's anything like mine, then yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
And it's
I was
so
just
that
confused because I was trying to
usually-
create it
yeah.
under my personal account and it was just like it wouldn't let me put a client in, and I was just
Because
want to
the
make sure I didn't
client-
mess anything up.
To create the client in the team account, the contact has to be in the team account, right? So like that's what's holding you up there. So
Right. I was just confused. I didn't know if there was a way to kind of change that or anything like that, but
I think it's 11:06. All right, so we've got, we'll probably get going over the next minute or so. And I hope they don't fire me as a team leader for ending us 15 minutes early, unless Mike wants to wrap up with 15 minutes or Maggie does as well. But let's see, with humor, I believe in the 411. It's a little odd at first, but I once said to an OP who wanted it at 4 o'clock on a Friday, hey, if you're going to fire a good TL because he won't get you at 411 on a Friday, I'm at peace with that. If you are, I'd hate to see you do that. Now, I liked him on Mondays because Monday got my head into the game for the week. But I encourage you guys, let's actually talk about some daily habits, routines, and a couple things. All right, let's see here. Can you guys see the habit loop that's on my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So, and again, back to Audible. I wish I was on commission for Audible because it's changed my life. I probably listen to 12 to 15 books a year in the car. I prep brisket. I listen to Audibles, although when I'm snowboarding, it's generally the Rolling Stones, AC/DC, and a little Jimi Hendrix. But with that being said, keep in mind, a couple things. We have some very basic wiring in our systems. And there's a very powerful book called Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Side note, if you're on a team or even as a PC team, I would consider asking the leader if they would start an Audible book club where you all listen to it like a couple hours a week. You talk about the books because you'll see different perspectives. You'll get different ahas. And then I see a lot of people synergize. Of the 7 companies I'm involved with, 5 of which are active teams. 2 or 3 are real estate related, KW Vermont, the real estate team, and the property management company. The most successful of the teams have regular book clubs going on, and people are embracing, growing, and changing their mindset on a daily basis. The least performing 2 teams, the 2 leaders don't read, they don't get into classes, and it's a challenge. One of them, actually, I'm not even going to go into who that is. Somebody near and dear to my heart. So Power of Habit will analyze what's on the screen below. There's a routine. Actually, I think they got it in yeah, this one, sorry, I picked one that's actually backward. So it should be Q at the top. I guess it's somewhat right. There's going to be a Q. Then there's going to be a routine, and there's going to be a result/reward. So remember, if your cue is you get nervous, so you don't lead gen, you don't script practice, you're building a routine. Unfortunately, that's not a routine that aligns with success. Whereas if the cue is you get nervous, you somehow game yourself to lean into that elephant, into that obstacle, and you attack it, then the results and the rewards you will get will be significant because you'll start to get wired to start to face the obstacle. So with humor and with seriousness, I'd encourage you guys, if it's COVID safe, to go skydiving in 22. Because when that door opens up, your cue is going to be to blank, you're blank, you're blank, to scream, to yell. And when you force yourself to get out, and I recommend tandem, so you're not flying yourself, picking up the phone call and calling a stranger or calling somebody you know and asking them for a real estate lead, that'll be easy peasy. So I encourage you, go skydiving and then book the next 3 days of 2 to 3 hours of lead gen, because it's going to seem like nothing. That wonderful, talented individual, Michelle Peters, I took her skydiving, and her production after her lead gen was amazing, because all those nervousness didn't add up to a hill of beans, because she just got out of a plane at 12,000 feet. All right, but circling back to basics, back to habit, routine, reward. That's where we want to try to build the habits in the morning, get the lead gen going, get the script practice going. And Mike, I'd love to get back to those. We'll talk about that too. I'd love to get back to that. Now, if I go to, all right. So successful daily habits. First and foremost, this is what I recommend. This is not part of what's on the thing. I recommend starting with some affirmations. I get better and better every day is my favorite. Now that also means that I'm lecturing my stepchildren on how to better load the dishwasher. Pretty anal retentive, sorry. But I get better and better every day. I love lead generating. I generate high quality leads every day. I provide tremendous value to people. Game yourself, come up with 5, 10 affirmations. in a little bit of the words, both in your dialogues and in your affirmations. I'll give you an example. I have largely, I'm a brisket away from my gold weight. I lost 30 pounds in the last 5 years after losing a loved one to cancer. I'll tell you about that if we have time in a second to hopefully try to get you guys going in a good way. And I know that I have to game my routine. So I set an alarm that said, do not eat. That was negative. Don't do this versus make healthy choices. One's don't stop. The other is forward, make good decisions. So use that in your words, but use that in your affirmations. Don't let limiting beliefs, stop you. How about I smash through limiting beliefs on a daily basis? With humor, my father, rest his soul, so when I went heliboarding in Alaska, don't die. So Dad, would you rather have me focusing on don't die or slay that shit? Excuse my language. And I will tell you, get out of a helicopter that's hanging over a cliff, and the skids are hanging over the trail. Lead genning seems a lot easier after that. So I would also take a few minutes to look at your future self. And if you email barmstrong@kw.com, barmstrong, I'll try to put that in the chat, and ask for the future self, I'm happy to share that. And let's type this in. No, trying not to do direct message there. All right. And at the end, if we have time, I'll share you the exercise that really gave me the most powerful future self that I've ever had and helped me through some challenging times. Possibly, and I'm struggling with this one. I wrote on my 411 that I'm going to meditate 5 days a week, 2 to 5 minutes. And when I meditate, it's not anything fancy. It's watching my breathing, seeing my future self realized, thinking about all the people I'm going to help, and go back to my just go back to my breathing. I'd also encourage you, if exercise is needed in your life, build the routines in the morning. Now, as we shift to professional, I would absolutely say the future self is part of that. I would say the affirmations are part of that professional self. I was doing affirmations for you guys when I was working out at the trainer at 6 a.m. I was going to bring tremendous value to people. I'm great. I'm a great educator. I'm a great teacher. Hopefully it's somewhat showing up. Now, specific to your business, I'm going to recommend, anywhere, depending where your career is at. If you got nothing in the pipeline, I'd recommend three hours a day, 5 days a week. But break it up. Is it every 50 minutes? Is it an hour and a half? Take time, walk around the office, game yourself. I watch a lot of video game trailers to get me all charged up, i.e. the Master Chief in the back of my office. Boomtown did a survey. People who lead generate in their system, it's an Audi level CRM. People who lead generate an hour and a half a day, 3 days a week. How much do you guess their average income is? Throw it out. Hour and a half a day, 3 days a week. 70,000.
Oh, I was going to say 75.
Yeah,
sorry,
we had
couldn't get myself
Katie,
unmuted quick enough.
Yeah, Katie Newheimer very close at 80. Boomtown also found that people who lead generated 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, how much do you think their average income was? Chat or shout outs?
About 150.
Let's keep going up. Great answer, Jenny. Let's keep going up.
3 times.
Keep going up. 250. Now, a couple other quick thoughts. I am not saying to you guys that your life as a real estate agent needs to be 3 hours a day of lead gen, 5 days a week, get used to it, suck it up, blank, 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 or get out of Dodge. There's this analogy that success is a 2,000-pound concrete flywheel. It's really easy to keep it spinning once you get that 2,000-pound concrete flywheel spinning. So what we're talking about today is getting that concrete flywheel spinning. The last year I was really in production. I was the principal broker of the firm, but not the team leader. Ran a property management company, helped run a team. I did 22 transactions in the year. All but 2 were SOI. Now, so I wasn't candidly doing a ton of lead gen then, but I had paid my dues. I got that concrete flywheel spinning to the point I was getting a ton of repeat and referral basis. So you may choose to make lead generation 5 days a week for the rest of your life. More power to you. It's going to be awesome. You also might choose to say, hey, once I get to X income, this is what I want to be. This is good. And you can create that through sphere of influence. Side note, read the MREA. The 33 touch program is absolutely, huge. So other habits, that I would get into is, and I do believe in this next slide, add 10 contacts to your database a day. I'll pause right there. Life is, the sweet spot to me is somewhere between, it's a dichotomy. Press yourself hard, push yourself. At the end of the day, give yourself a break. You give it the best you can, go home, punch out, sleep well, don't beat yourself up. It's somewhere in between those two things. So you got to enjoy the journey. But if you only made 5 contacts today, or put 5 contacts in your database today, somebody's going to either I'm putting to somebody's sleep or they're going to dog somewhere. So don't beat yourself up and just say, you know what? I should get out of this business. I only put 5 contacts in. I'm horrible at this. Just say, all right, tomorrow I'm going to go for 10. My goal's 10. My quota's 7. My goal's 10. My quota's 7. So you take that 5, you bump it up a couple. Same thing with number of contacts. Your goals, I recommend 15 contacts a day. But if you're getting 7, push it to 8. Don't beat yourself up too hard. I see a lot of people double up their prospecting. I mixed it today, so I'm going to do 4 hours tomorrow. They're not going to do 4 hours tomorrow, and then they feel like shit about themselves. Excuse my language. So try to have 10 conversations a day, real estate related, of course. Now, one of the things I love about real estate is reportedly in any room of 100, there's something like 23 transactions in the next 12 months. Either they know somebody or they're doing something themselves. So everywhere you go, I would try to add, and this is somewhat lead generation, somewhat, language. I would try to add, hey, really appreciate your service. Just curious, anybody's looking to buy or sell real estate? And just add it. My first wife almost wouldn't marry me because she found out I had a big Lionel train set, and Citibank had a large lien on that railroad set. I was at the hobby store and I said to the guy, as a loan officer, hey, anybody who's looking to buy a house or refinance? He goes, why? I said, I sell money. And my wife's going to kill me if I keep spending money in your store. Actually, I think she was just about my wife at that point. I ended up getting a $380,000 construction loan out of that quick conversation. That gentleman, I've done 5 transactions over the last 25 plus or so years. So everywhere they go, but ask ask at the restaurant, ask at the grocery store, pretty much any place. The other thing too is, in a little bit lead generation more than language, put yourself out there. Now I understand right now is a very interesting time. I respect everybody's political beliefs. I'm sure we have every spectrum covered on this thing. Don't need to go into it. But, when I say put yourself out there, I'm a horrible poker player. I've only played 15 or so games in my life. There was a group of guys that were getting together at 8 o'clock every other, I think once a month on a Friday night. I go to bed somewhere between 9 and 10. It was not my desired thing. But I knew there were some great people there that I enjoyed. So I went to the games and I ended up generating $3 million in business. Got a great contractor relationship with it. And I got a friend that I only see him a half dozen times a year. But every time I see him, he owns 55 units. I've done a bunch of properties with him. So put yourself out there, have those conversations. The handwritten notes, I believe in. Now, I won't do them for 2 reasons. Right now, everything on my plate, but 2 is I have the worst handwriting in the world. Nobody would ever actually be able to read, what I wrote. So you might try, and Maggie might have to help you with this. AM cards, I think is thing. It's not quite handwritten, but they take your signature, they put it, I think it's AM cards. But handwritten notes right now will blow people away. They're just so personal. Preview 10 homes per week. Get used to previewing, finding the lockbox. One of my favorite, not times was when I was doing an open house and I dropped the key right as people were lining up in between the house and the concrete stair pad. Lovely. I got to tell them I was the CEO of the real estate company. I haven't done an open house in a couple of years, and I hope you guys find humor in this. I was crawling under, but get used to that stuff because it's going to happen. So preview 10 homes. And I swear I saw somewhere on the earlier agenda, I was supposed to talk about showing homes, and I think we can do that in a couple minutes. With humor. If it's really, really undesirable neighborhood, like it's rough everywhere and, you know, broken down cars, whatever, and I'm a little exaggerating, I'd pull into the garage and show the house through the garage. That part was a joke. I would pull into the driveway, you know, and, you know, head right in. Now, if it was an amazingly pristine neighborhood, I might park across the street. So that as we walked around the street, walked across, we could look at this beautiful, pristine neighborhood and people could get a good feel. Other things as well, too, is, and this does tie into language. You know, I think there's a thing, try to ask some open-ended questions. I think I saw one that said, hey, you know, Pamela, you seem to really like the game room. You know, is that important to you? You family game a lot, you know, ask those open-ended questions. Well, I guess do you game a lot isn't an open-ended question, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. Other things as well, too. Could you see yourself enjoying this home? You know, Mike, you know, knowing that the golf course is 15 minutes away, is this a home that you think would fit? Now, another thing to potentially do, and this is definitely language. Writing a contract. You ever have those buyers, and I know a lot of you are new, you find them the perfect house and they freak out and they go quiet for 3 days? Oh my God, I've never written a contract that big. Holy smokes. And then they just disappear. So a great phrase for I's or S's or people that may be hesitant to write up an offer, you want to put some thoughts on paper. What is an offer? It's thoughts on paper. So first wife, she was a relocation director, raised by a Marine, Long Island woman, phenomenal individual. She was out of town for the week and said, hey, you know, the buyers want to see XYZ Street. These buyers want to see XYZ Street. Could you show it to me? No problem, honey, absolutely. So I go to the property, we show it, and you can tell they were like loving it. I felt like they were high S's, which means they're phenomenal relationship-based people. They're with humor, the big decisions, not to make any big decisions. They need a lot of assurance. And so I said to them after the showing, hey, you know, if you guys, I'm around all weekend. If you'd like to put some thoughts, you know, on paper and see what the seller says, just let me know. They were great. They're like, first, would your wife get credit? This is when I was the sales manager of another brand. So yeah, she's my wife, so she probably gets credit for everything, but I do it for any of our agents. Absolutely. So Laura gets back into town and I said, hey, they really like the house. I think they're going to want to write an offer. She calls them up and says, Brian said something to the effect, Brian said you really like the house. Do you want to write an offer? You know what they said? They said, well, he said we could put thoughts on paper. Now, being the Long Island woman that she is, tell it like it is, raised by a Marine, she's like, yeah, that's an offer. But the point being is it'll help people approach a multi-page, multi-paragraph, 6-digit to 7-digit contract a little bit more gently, if that makes sense. So find those little snippets. And if you got one, share one. If you hear one, write it down. That'll help you, help you have language. And with sellers, I've said it before, and hopefully this is helpful because, it's language based. Your house is overpriced. I'm sorry, Mr. Hickey. The market appears to be disagreeing with your pricing strategy. What do you feel when I tell you guys your house is overpriced?
Being judgmental, and you want the sale quicker.
Yep. How does it feel? And listen to your gut when I say, Pamela, I apologize. It appears that the market is disagreeing with your pricing strategy. And I wouldn't emphasize the your so much. Does it feel a little bit less judgmental?
Absolutely.
So we're going to find those words that people aren't going to object so hard to. The other thing I would say on language for servicing with buyers or sellers, and this is probably worthwhile to contact, let me just make sure, close deals. Yep, I think we can make this all happen. Is with buyers and showing homes, I would recommend that you do a few things. Find out, and Maggie, do they still get access to Terradatum or Cloud Metrics? We used to have a corporate package for agents.
It depends on the office. Some offices have it, some don't.
So talk to your PC, your TL, and ask them if they have either Terradatum, Cloud Metrics, or Broker Metrics. That's a software that basically goes in MLS, creates bar graphs, pie charts, average list to sell price ratios, days on market, number of months inventory. And part of the reason why that's important is if you don't know the personality profile of who you're going to meet, you want to have a presentation that's prepared to say all 4 personality profiles. D's are hard driver, tell it like it is. The only time that they'll say well done is when they order a steak. You know, knuckle crushing, one pump handshake. I's, I'm a high I with a high D. They talk way too much. They use their hands, go figure. You know, they're emotional beasts. You know, highs, it's got to be fun. With S's, think, relationship based, really strong emotional connections. With humor, their big decision is not to make any big decisions. They approach things cautiously, including relationships. C's, very analytical. You know, it's got it, life fits into a spreadsheet. They plan everything, even spontaneity. But the different personality profiles, you want to understand, like I have to gear down differently if I'm talking to an S or a C, because I'll talk too fast, I'll overpower them, and I won't talk enough about the numbers to C's. So back to this broker metrics stuff or market statistics. You really want to know those, not only to help yourself, especially, and I think Ryan, you came to mind, if you're newer, by knowing the market's statistics, people will question your experience less. The other thing you can set up the language is something like the following at the buyer consults. You know, Roberto, really excited to work with you and help you and your partner find the next great place to call home. So I just want to share with you a little bit about what's happening in our market and my history of working with buyers. Right now, I believe the average American home buyer is seeing, this probably has gone up, the stat's like 3 years old, seeing somewhere between 14 and 16 homes before they find a home that's right for them. Now, if your goals are calibrated to the marketplace, side note, if you're realistic, if your goals are calibrated to the marketplace, and I'm doing my job in listing, I generally can find buyers the right home in 4 to 6 properties. And generally after 4 to 6 properties, if we have not found you the right home, either A, I may not be listening well enough, or B, there's a potential that your needs are not calibrated to your price range or to the marketplace. So what you're doing right there in your language is you're setting up some future metrics. So if I'm an avid snowboarder, it's like snowboarding the moguls. If I'm looking at the next mogul, I'm flying flat in my face. Mike would probably agree. He's a skier, I think, and a boarder. Generally on the moguls, we're thinking 3 to 5 bumps ahead. There's that law again, 3 to 5. So back to that situation. Should also, if I did better, I would have told Roberto the average list to sell price ratio. So after 6 to 7 homes, if we're not seeing the right home for Roberto, or he's not like pulling the trigger or stuff like that, I might just say, Roberto, we've seen about, 6 or 7 homes right now. First and foremost, when I reflect on your goals, go through the goals again, so they make sure I'm concerned that we may have 3 choices. Either A, and this is actually, I'll jump into the real story behind this one. So choices with high Ds are really, really good because high Ds like to be in control. So I had a high D, 2 high D borrowers. They wanted to be 15 minutes from the hospital. They wanted a half acre, 250,000. And we just weren't finding it. And so I said to him, I think we have three choices. Either A, we can expand your commute range from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Now I know you don't want to do that, but I think if we were able to do that, we'd be able to get you in the XYZ marketplace, and those homes do exist. The home that you're looking for does exist in that price range in that market. The second option is we could go back to your lender and see if we could help them get your loan amount up another $50,000. Because I believe if we were up $50,000, we'd be able to find the home in your commute range. Now, the third option is we could just wait. Roberto, role play with me. You know what concerns me about that, Roberto? Now, here's a tactic, and this is one of the hardest tactics I've had to learn. Let silence do the lifting, the heavy lifting. So, Roberto, do you know what concerns me about that?
What?
That's all we may be doing. You know, with interest rates forecasted to rise, and if they go up 0.5% or so, they're probably going to affect your borrowing tower at 10%. Is that something you really want to have happen?
Right.
Now, back to Mike's comment about being present. When you start the tactic of letting silence do the heavy lifting, I even got nervous in front of you guys. I felt my own blood pressure go up. Like, wow, he's not role playing with me. What's going to happen here? Am I going to screw up in front of everybody? I'm working on that tactic for years, and it still feels like I'm not getting past 5 push-ups. But it will get awkward. But where it gets awkward between the third and the fifth closing, and where it gets awkward in the silence, that's where the magic happens. But that's why we have to program ourselves again. Habit. Cue, we get uncomfortable. Most of us, routine is we run back to the comfort zone. Whereas we train ourselves to cue, get uncomfortable, hang on through the uncomfortable part, try to power through that obstacle, we'll get the reward.
Right.
Any thoughts, questions on this so far? So some negotiation language, because I swear I saw, Mag, you're supposed to talk about negotiation. I didn't even think TC somewhere in here, which we're absolutely not going to talk about TC, but maybe it was just a general overview. So some negotiating tactics, and this is good with buyers. Buyers who will either try to keep writing low offers. It's good with other listing agents or other agents. But for writing low offers, use, and please write this one down. And I mean this with respect and hope for each one of you. You might want to even write it in your forehead in reverse. You can see it. Roberto can see it. You can see it in your mirror. And if they author it, they will defend it. If you author it, they will doubt it. If they author it, they will defend it. If you author it, they will doubt it. You know, if any of you got kids in their 20s, all the stuff you told them would happen if they didn't get their blank together, they're starting to realize, you became really sharp and intelligent in the last few years. They started, I think the Mark Twain quote is, when I was 14, my father was so ignorant I could barely stand to have him around. When I turned 21, I was amazed to see how much he had learned in 7 years. And that's where you don't want to use rhetorical questions as like that hardcore negotiator. You can't handle the truth, and backing them into a corner and jackhammering them. But you do want to use questions to help them self-discover. So I'll give you an example. When we launched KW Vermont, I made every mistake a recruiter should make or shouldn't make. I went out and puked KW. Oh, we're great. We got this, we got this, we got this. I was just puking. Versus when I actually started asking a ton of questions about their business, and Mike, you didn't even remember some of these. How's your business going on a scale of 1 to 10? What would make it a 10? Tell me about, where you hope your business is in 4 or 5 years. Well, and this is the truncated version. Mike, if I was able to put a business plan together that could help you do that, would it matter what color your signs were? I didn't say, would you come to KW? I said, would it matter what color your signs were? It's change. Other thoughts, back to negotiations, other agents, sellers. So here's the other tactic. So the rhetorical question, if Roberto was, because he's just right next to me on Zoom, if Roberto kept offering 90 cents on the dollar in a marketplace that's going for 104%, Roberto, I'm hoping you can help me with something. If you'd be so kind, Roberto, let's role play this one.
Okay.
If you were a seller in this market and the average list to sell price ratio was 104%, why would you take 90 cents on the dollar?
Okay, yeah, I can see your point.
In where the high D's in the room want to say, you blank, they're never going to accept it. You're wasting my time. But the difference is you probably felt a little self-discovery on that.
Right.
Versus now sometimes you do need the frank, tell it like it is. Roberto, right. I love working with you. I apologize, but your tactics are not aligning with your strategies. And I'm afraid if you're not going to get realistic, you're going to have to work with another agent. There's a time and place for that.
Right.
So the other thing to do too is possibly somehow work in the phrase, like if you got a seller who's saying, well, hey, I want you to reduce your commission, by 33 1/3%. Roberto, help me understand. If you're like most Americans, this is probably one of your largest assets. And one of the reasons why you're hiring an agent is to negotiate the sale of your largest asset. Would I be correct?
Yeah.
Then how do you feel about hiring a negotiator to cut their fee 33% in under 5 minutes? How do you feel like they're going to negotiate on your behalf?
Yeah.
So I'd like to show you how good of a negotiator I am, and I'm going to politely decline your request. Now, I may or may not move from 6 to 5 or stuff like that, but there's different things. The other thing, we had one buyer's agent one listing agent really rip in a negative way, but ethical way, another agent. They got a $30,000 request for a septic system in the middle of this last year's market. And the listing agent used, and this is right out of Chris Voss. Well, how could we do that? And the buyer's like, well, you don't have a working system. You need to, and the listing agent was like, that's $30,000. How can we do that? And kept going back with how can we do that? And it forced the buyer's agent to effectively negotiate with themselves. I think it ended up 50-50, but the buyer's agent was pissed because they didn't feel, and that there could have been a more diplomatic tactic. So that's a role reversal in asking them how can we do that? The other thing that comes to mind in tactics, and I want to jump in a couple minutes to something else, is if you can find an analogy with a client, ask them how a conversation would go. Now, what I mean by that is we had double-sided deal, KW Vermont double-sided deal. We had that phenomenal buyer's agent, Michelle Peters. Mike, please tell her I was raving about her. She's so darn good. When my mother-in-law was looking for a place to live, I sent Michelle out with her. I didn't go out with her because Michelle's better than me in the field. We had a buyer start to get rude. And I don't care. You can complain about our service, but if you start to personally insult any one of our 201 agents, the panda turns into a grizzly. And so KW had both sides, and the guy was making a BS, request. Back note, and this is not being politically incorrect. This was, I believe, the exact situation. He had, and I'm not passing judgment. Actually, you know what? Because I'm even concerned about it, I'm not going to tell that part of the story. He was in between a rock and a hard place. But he was also being really rude and obnoxious. He said, well, I think you guys are just going to have to deduct, it was like a week before closing. And he had a new baby on the way, I'll share you that. And it was leaving an old relationship, going to a new one. And that's as much as I'll tell you about that. And he said, well, if you don't cut your commission, this deal probably just won't close. Now, he was a contractor. And it's good to know what your people do for work. Don't hesitate to look them up on social media, understand who they are so you can better connect with them and stuff like that. And so I said to the gentleman, so you're a contractor. Can you explain to me how the conversation would go if you had an agreed upon contract and a week before completion of your job, you were asking for a 17% reduction in your fee? Because that 1% ended up being, sounds like one. That's another tactic of language. People think 1%. Now, really, it's 17%. 1 of 6 is 17%. So I amplified the number is the art of language to help drive the point home. So I said, how would the conversation go with your client? And then there was silence. And believe it or not, I was able to shut up. And then when the silence ended, he said, well, just the deal may not close if you don't. So I said, again, I used the phrase, I'm at peace with that if you are. Click. Actually, he said, I'll call you back. Click. We didn't even go 5 minutes. You call me back. We'll do the deal. Now, in reality, if the guy was super, super nice, hey, I'm in a hard place. I'm in a jam. I got this. We would have considered the request. But because he was, doing personal insults, no, he panda turned into a grizzly. So on a phrase with listing agents, and this one's important because you're in multiple offer situations. One is, please get involved with your local association of realtors. Now, with humor, Vermont's got 2,000. What do we have? Mike's president of Vermont Association of Realtors. What do we have? 1,800 realtors in the state, 2,000 licensees.
Just right around 2,000. Yep.
Yeah, you guys probably have that in one marketplace in Boston. But get to the realtor events, get networking, get to know the agents so that when they get 15 offers, it's not, hey, who are you with? It's, hey, Stacy, I haven't seen you in a long time. How are things going? What's going on? So get involved, get networking.
When Brian says that, that's real too, by the way. I mean, it's so important to put your hand up and volunteer in your local association. When I was sworn in as a realtor, the same exact day, I was sworn in as the vice president of the association because I knew getting to know the other realtors was key to being successful in business. When you picked up the phone, they knew me because they were going to the general sessions or they just saw my name in newsletters and stuff like that. So it's super, super important to get involved in your local association.
Absolutely huge. So here's one of my favorite questions to a listing agent. In addition to the almighty dollar, help me help you. What could I do or what could my buyers do to better help your seller smile? Help me help you. What could I or my buyers do to better help you make your seller smile? Now, that might be a slight move at the closing date. My first house, I beat out another buyer. It was 2,000 less because I would close 2 weeks later. They said, we just really want to close in X time so the kids can finish off, in the school system. Now, they might say, well, we can't tell you that. I was like, oh, I'd play with it. Oh, come on. There's going to be something. Is there a closing date? Is there something they want on the property? Like if it's a resort, they want a weekend next year at the house. Do they, what comes to mind that we could do to make your seller smile? First, they're going to start laughing at the rationale. And that phrase, help me help you, that is a little bit sales-esque, sort of slick. So if it's not you, don't use it. But that phrase, help me help you, that could be used with buyers to write better offers, sellers to better price. Help me help you get to Florida faster by pricing it, more in line with the market. Any other thoughts, questions as we enter into our sort of final moments on these 3 pieces? Or not 3 or whatever pieces. I've lost count.
One of the things Brian's been talking about is making them comfortable. And it's just a small thing, but you should probably try to bring it into your language is when you go to a listing appointment, switch the word from home to house. So it's no longer their ownership. So when you're going into a listing agent, just switch that language. They might say to you, let me show you my home. And you want to turn that around, not tell them to turn around, but you want to turn around to them and say things like, thanks so much for showing me your beautiful house. Once you get that language, and you want to do the reverse for buyers, if you get them into a home that they want to see, you use language like welcome home, you know, and you use the word home, not house, not property. Home is so important, and it gets them into a mindset that you really want.
Spot on. I'd even add to Mike's excellent point. Mr. Hickey, do you know that once you list your home, it becomes a house? And the only reason I would try to add that is help them with a transition. Because, you know, like if you insult if I had 5,000 million photographs of all my cats, all my, you know, my kids and all that stuff, and you told me to take that down, I'd be like, what? You don't like my cats? You know, and you're not saying I don't like your cats. You're just saying, I don't want people to think about your cats when they're looking at your house, you know? So, but again, that's a great phrase. Yeah. I don't know if you know this, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but when you put your home on the market, it becomes a house. I'll throw in this last one. I'll try to get to the last 10 minutes. We may miss the jump ball format. But, oh shoot, house at home. Shoot, I'll see if it comes back to me. There was something about houses at home. Oh, shoot. All right, I'll give you one more listing suggestion. It may not be the most valid right now because we're not seeing a ton of expireds, although I think that's going to change a little bit. We're just definitely starting to see some pieces go. For calling expireds, I would use the phrase, I happen to specialize in homes that didn't sell the first time. I like to focus on homes that didn't sell the first time. And then again, you'd make the switch to house when you got there. Other things that I would do on listings with language, algorithms, and ideas is once again, set trigger points. So Mr. Marchetto, there are two reasons why a house does or does not sell: price or exposure. Now I'd move a little faster in this one, but I figure some of you guys may be taking notes. So based upon the marketing plan, we'll be using a drone photography. We'll be mailing to 25 of your neighbors. I'll be calling around homes in the neighborhood to see if we know anybody else is looking to buy in your neighborhood. And we're going to be on 350 websites. Based upon our marketing system, do you believe that your home will be exposed in a superior way? Excellent. I'm glad you agree. So in the next 2 weeks, if we don't have 10 showings or 2 offers, it may be, again, maybe, I'm using this time, I don't want to be firm. I want him just to open his mind. I don't want him to close his mind. So I'm being sort of in the middle, wishy-washy. It may be an indication that the market is disagreeing with your pricing strategy. And actually, Mike, I got to thank you for a second, but let me, if you help me remember, bring me back to Philo Road in a second. So the other thing that I would consider doing in that case is in that 10 days, if we haven't had those 10 showings and haven't had 2 offers, I'd call Roberto up and say, I hope you remember, not so fast. When we first got together, we talked about market plan, we've executed that, we've got the drone photography, we had X number of hits on the website. It's been about 2 weeks, but we've only had 3 showings. And I would try to let the silence sit for a little bit.
Right.
And based upon our original conversation, I'm concerned that the market may be disagreeing with your pricing strategy and then touch their goals. I know how important it is to get you to Florida before the snow flies so you can get to the golf course. And that will hopefully help. Now, one thing, and this is where Philo Road was triggered this, is, and I want to balance being, politically correct, as I think we should all be, but also being realistic. Now, what I mean by that is my first Way for Esther Soul did a lot with foreclosures. Mike knows who I'm already talking about. We've got a guy that he's probably sent 30 deals to our team in the last 7 years. He's a great guy. He's a good guy. Sometimes he likes to tilt the bottle a little bit. and sometimes he becomes a little bit difficult. And so I would encourage you, and I'm going to try not to use the language on this Zoom, meet them on their level. I stopped by and I talked to the guy on my motorcycle, and she said, hey, we really love doing business with you, but if you keep being a blank, blank, blank and treating the traffic like blank, Scott, I'm at peace. This just may not be the right relationship anymore. Now, if I was super prim and proper and didn't use an F-bomb and didn't use this and that, I wouldn't connect with a guy. He rides Harleys, I ride BMWs, or a BMW. But we have a really good relationship. We're on opposite ends of the political spectrum. And I got a hardcore Vermont redneck who's a phenomenal guy. I consider a great friend and tells me he loves me. I'm sure he does. It's just an odd situation. And it's not in an inappropriate way. It's in a brotherly good way. So be aware of your surroundings, and whenever necessary, consider talking at their levels. Now, what I mean by that is I used to change tires. When I go into that tire shop still, I swear I cuss with them, I roll with them, we have great times, we have laughter. Haven't closed any deals out of there, but I've gotten 2 or 3 leads. And if I think I went in prim and proper every time, I wouldn't get the business. Now, no, obviously don't cross politically incorrect lines, but swearing, stuff like that, when it's appropriate on the right piece.
One of my favorite quotes from you, Brian, is have form yet be formless. Have form yet be formless. A couple of great things I learned.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Please. No, please, Mike, go ahead.
Some of the best things I learned from Scott was, he lit me up one day and was up one side, down the other. And he said, I don't understand why you don't have a contract in your car. I want to sign a contract right now. Why don't you have one? And from then on, I've always had a contract in my car. I always have a printed one, especially if I'm going to see Scott.
That right there is another gem. I hope you guys wrote that down. We live in a digital world. Everybody wants to dot loop. Everybody wants to sign. I'd have paper in your car. So if Scott or Mike or Brian or Liza or Janet wants to write an offer right there, you get that out. You're on the hood of your car. Go for it.
I had to jump and jive and shift to convince him that I would get him a contract immediately when I got back. And he's a guy, he doesn't have a computer. He only carries a cell phone. He only has a cell phone, had to do it on the cell phone. So I really felt bad about it, but I did make that $60,000 foreclosure house sale.
Yeah. And Mike said, never again. I'm just kidding.
No.
All right. So I'm going to share with you one last funny story about leaning into it. And then if we got a few minutes, and I'm going to get us out of here, 12:02, 3, stuff like that. I'll tell you an authentic story, which may be over the top, but hopefully it'll help you as it's helped me. Yep. So back to Mount Philo Road. When this was a case, I was prospecting expireds. Guy found I was out of Keller Williams agent, told me that a Keller Williams agent had wasted his time, helped him subdivide the property. It was a big pain in the ass. I moved right past it. Then I told him the team I was on, and he said, it was my wife. He said, that's the agent who wasted my time. Now it was started at $825. Vermont's average sales price at the time was probably $270. It expired at $725. So I went out to the house, met with the guy, and told him $650. He was a DC personality, and no, that wasn't slang. He was a high D, hard driver, very analytical minded. I think he was in tech for IBM at the time. And he got pretty upset. He said, this is ridiculous, $650,000? And I asked him, I leaned into the object. Mike, it actually wasn't Mike Hickey. Do you think I came out here today knowing that you were gonna not like this number? Yes. Do I at least have your respect for showing up and sharing it with you? That connected with him. Because I leaned right into the elephant, right into the object. And that sort of lowered the bars. I got one more comment about bars. Now, I ended up getting information, follow-up information late. And I said to him one day, like a few days later on the phone, Mike, let's be frank. You're not going to hire me. I did this. I called you by the wrong name twice, and I got you information a day late. And his response, no, I told you your wife was incompetent. I think we're good. I'm going to hire you. Now, I was as shocked as you guys were, but I was leaning right into the elephant. I was like, let's call it is. I screwed up your name. I got you information. It was just, I was screwing up. Oddly enough, he said, and I'm not big into numbers, the spreadsheet. He said, you were the only agent that went through market statistics and connected how that affects my marketing. So we used that, I used that servicing approach, went through the exposure line, went through the web hit line, went through all that stuff. And I like to get people, and Mike, thanks for picking up on that. I try to get people really, really comfortable, which is words is the big thing. And so I think it was like 3 months into this, into the relationship, I was doing a bi-weekly servicing call. And I said, Mike, I hope you know, I do not enjoy these phone calls. And I paused and I let silence do the heavy lifting. And as a DC, he didn't joke around much. So finally he chuckled and said, care to explain? And I said, yes. I call you every 2 weeks. I tell you how wonderful your house is, how beautiful I think it is. Yet the market is disagreeing with your pricing strategy and you don't do anything about it. I got a $20,000 price reduction out of that. We started at $725. It sold at $637. I forecasted $650. And I could have made a mistake taking it at $725. But as we conclude, the points I'll make is remember that habit loop. Cue, routine, result, or reward. And I'm not recommending you do this. Driving excessively fast on motorcycles, cars, jumping out of a plane every now and then, going hoverboarding. I've rewritten my habit loop that when I start to get uncomfortable, even though I acknowledge it, I lean into the uncomfort, I lean into the elephant, I lean into the obstacle. And I've really focused on words to help me do that while bringing people value. So let me actually shoot one text. Text Cole Elwood, I'll be on in 10 minutes. So I'll go a few more minutes if you guys. It said till 12:15. I said 12. I'll go for 5 more minutes. So as I leave you guys today, I'm going to ask each and every one of you to do something a little bit for me, but more so for you. What drives me is the old Greek proverb. A society grows great when old citizens, you say, Matt, I'm trying to make it gender appropriate, when old citizens plant trees under which say they know they'll never sit. I hope to get to know you. I hope to bump into a family reunion, regional thing, but I respect there's a good chance I'll never see you guys again. So from today, the thing that I would ask you to do is if you have a significant other in your life, go home and go through a future self exercise. Write down where you want to be physically and health-wise in 3 to 5 years. Write down where you want to be financially. Write down what your social relationships are. Write down what your career and vacations look like. So there's 5, 6, 7 things. I use an iPad thing called iThoughts. It's great. It's a mind map. And make sure, and I put down spiritually. Now I respect anybody's creed, but I'm like Einstein. I spell God N-A-T-U-R-E. Write it down so it makes you smile from ear to ear. And again, I encourage you to use your spouse, not use your spouse, do this with your spouse to make sure it's a life that you both want. And I think that I will tell you there will be a bonding experience, or I did literally have one agent say to me, what if my future self doesn't include my spouse? That was a whole different conversation. That person separated, they're much happier. Make sure you see it and you smile. And then post it where you get ready in the morning. Post it where you lead generate. And take time, at least for the next 3-4 weeks, look at it 5 days a week. 3 other great books, Simon Sinek, Start With Why, Roberta knows it. Leaders Eat Last, An Infinite Game. Infinite Game, we'll talk about how life and business is an infinite game. People play it like a finite game. And that's why we get so upset. Feel like if we get one more deal, if we make 10,000 more next year, everything will be fine. In reality, we still have all the problems that we do. Simon Sinek would argue, if you have a powerful enough why, you will survive anyhow. And here's the authentic piece, which may be over the top, a little bit ridiculous, or you will see that I care tremendously, even though I don't know you, about you, your success, and I'm extremely grateful for Keller Williams. It's changed my life. 6.5, and I'm making meepy on this, so bear with me on this one. 6.5 or 6 or so years ago, I lost my first wife to cancer. 6-month diagnosis. Now, side note, another book on challenges, Book of Joy is phenomenal. It's a week-long banter between Archbishop Tutu and the Dalai Lama on joy, loss, and suffering. Phenomenal book. That book made me realize I was blessed to have 20 years with an amazing individual versus the world blanked me. Now, after everybody left, the ceremonies passed, the silence was thunderous. If anybody ever watched the movie 300, there's a scene at the end, it's the Spartan 300 against the Persian Empire. The guy takes a spear and shoves it through his stomach so he can get to the attackers who had killed his son. So 2 weeks after she passed, I sat down, and this was probably the 3rd or 4th time in my life that I revisited my future self. And I rewrote my future self. I was pulverized into grains of sand. I wailed, and I'm kidding you not, I wailed my way through the exercise. But I knew I would either A, use it as a reason to drink, to drug, to eat, to go, burn through the pain. Or I knew I could channel, with a little bit of humor, that extreme uncomfort into an energy that was almost unstoppable. So I wrote down my relationship with my stepson. It was challenging in the high school years. I was judge, jury, and executioner. When his father's a good friend of mine, dad take him bass fishing. I'd ask him how the chores were doing. You wrote down that we had a closer relationship than we ever done before. We do now have a closer relationship than we have ever had before. I wrote down the success of the real estate team. I wrote down KW, Vermont, where we're at, the property management company. Very candidly, those goals haven't been met, but they're so much further along because I wrote them down and I look at them all the time. And that future self was so pertinent or potent to me that it allowed me to take all those grains of sand and reform who I was, go out and lose 30 pounds and kept it off. I still have 20 more to go, not hit my goal yet. It helped me continue to make sure the team that she launched is running well, it's vibrant, it's profitable, it's up and going, because it was a tremendous service to her, as well as I love what I do as a TL, KW, and the other companies as well. So please go through this exercise and feel free to be Armstrong at KW. I'll share a copy of mine. I'll share a little exercise to help you. But make sure you have a clear and articulate why, because it'll help you through, God, I don't know what to say. They're going to laugh at me. I'm too young to them to take me seriously. I'm starting a new career after 20 years in field of X. Why am I doing this? Where do I have to be? Make sure you're smiling in that why, so each and every day when we're bombarded about news, what's happening in the economy, COVID, all this stuff, it powers you through. And I'll thank you guys today for letting me ramble and talk, because I do love to talk. But also sharing that story, because helping other people better challenge themselves to slay the demons between themselves and their goals is something that I have extreme passion for. So with that being said, folks, I can't stress enough. You've chose to partner with a company that's changed my life. I think if you lean into their models and systems, including the 6 personal perspectives, in being education-based, committing to self-mastery, I think you can have a phenomenal life worth living. And I'd encourage you, stay in contact with your why on a daily basis. So when somebody hangs up on you, no big deal. It's down payment on my success. Next, and that you rewire your habit loop to, instead of getting uncomfortable and running back to being comfortable, you lean into the obstacle, you lean into the elephant. And most importantly, you better challenge yourself. Any thoughts, questions, and hopefully today was value for you.
Hey, Brian, one thing you mentioned Power of Habits, the book Power of Habits, which I've never heard you mention before, but I looked it up. There's a couple of authors on it. Well, who's the author of the one that you're recommending?
Charles Duhigg.
Charles Duhigg. Thank you. I'm going to put it in the chat.
And I'd add one last book, Willpower Effect. Now, Charles Duhigg, those are going to be dry books. And the reason why I say listen is because most people I know say, hey, I get more out of it, I read. The moment they pick up the reading, they fall asleep. So use your automobile, on the elliptical, on whatever you do. But they're going to be dry books, but they're going to better help you understand how to create more willpower, how to better manage your habit loops. Because with humor and with seriousness, you are the biggest obstacle between yourself and the goals that you want. How you think, how you were raised, what you're told you could, you told you couldn't, told you were never going to be good enough, all that stuff. And if you're on a team, and Mike, this may be a great one for you, Smarter, Faster, Better by Charles Duhigg. He analyzes the habits of top performing teams like the Marines, Saturday Night Live, Google, Apple, really some amazing stuff. Any questions, other questions that come to mind? Any ahas? So if you have no ahas, that means you're so blown away that it was a phenomenal day, or I completely bombed it.
Phenomenal day.
Thank you.
It was a phenomenal day. I have
Phenomenal day.
Great time.
Please.
I really like to say, like how you said, to get to know your fellow agents. That's really big, because it's so true that, if you're making an offer and they see you, it might be the decision that they make for your buyer.
Yeah.
In many other ways too.
And Karen, one of the biggest things that we're challenged with right now is oxytocin. I think it's oxytocin, maybe serotonin. Really only happens in person. I mean, it's in your mother's milk, and that comes from the Simon Sinek books, but it's getting together. So I think our biggest challenge as a country, as a region, as a brand, as an industry, is how do we try to get together once again safely? And that's going to be a different definition to everybody. But I encourage you guys, challenge yourself on that question as well. How could we get together safely? When is the right time so we can get that oxytocin going and we can get those relationships? Very candidly, I don't think Mike and I would be in business if 20 years ago I wasn't on the board of realtors, met an icon in our industry nationally and locally to us, Ken Libby. And when I called him up, I was in Bold, called him up to see if he'd grab a cup of coffee. I expected him to say yes because we're old friends, but I didn't expect the merger proposition would ever happen. 3 months later, we merged. He knew Mike Hickey from another firm, and now Mike and I are not only great friends, he's running a great team, actually teams merged, and he's actually helped me in the leadership role. So that came from being on a board and getting involved.
Hey, Brian, someone's asking for your cell phone number. Is it all right that I put it in the chat for people that could reach out to you?
Absolutely. Text is probably best. And don't take it offense if I don't get back to you. Don't hesitate to poke me a second time. Just because I live the Mario Andretti quote, if you're in control, you're not going fast enough. Guys, thank you for your time. I hope that you'll do your part to identify your future self, create a why so powerful that you better master the language to be more comfortable lead generating, setting appointments, helping people further their goals so you can help your family further theirs. And remember, better or worse, we live and die on our words in this society. Thank you, guys. Have a
Thanks,
great
Brian.
day.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Go slay
Thanks.
dragons.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.